Proceed with the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay, good evening. Betty wanted to make a note that the board would convene an executive session to discuss matters leading to the appointment, employment, promotion, demotion, discipline, suspension, dismissal, or removal of a particular person or persons, and for purposes of legal matters and current and or future litigation. Okay. So we will begin our organizational meeting by swearing in of our new board members.
The new old board members, right?
Okay, so at this point, congratulations to all. Look forward to working with all of you. So at this point, we will swear in our board officers is next, right? You want to do nominations first? I have to be sworn in, right? Swear. Elect the president first. Okay. I actually thought about this. I really did. Okay. So at this point in time, I'd like to take a nomination for president of the Board of Education. Trustee Commander.
I'd like to nominate Sarah Jones for the presidency.
Okay, are there any seconds? Okay, any discussion? Are there any other nominations for president of the board? Okay, none? We'll call the vote. All in favor? Sarah Jones is president. All opposed? Okay, the motion carries. Congratulations.
Thank you. And then
See
you
if I
wanna
get
take
sworn
over
in.
take over the meeting.
I would hope so. Congratulations. Next, we'll take a nomination for Vice President of the Board of Education. I'll take a nomination.
I'd like to nominate David Ludmar for the position.
Okay. There are any seconds? Trustee President Jones. Are there any other nominations for Vice President? Okay, so we'll call the vote. All in favor? All opposed? Okay, the motion carries 6-0. Congratulations. You're welcome. So now you get sworn in.
You all need to sign the registered before, or just before the end of the meeting.
Okay. All right, so now we'll swear in board officers. So I think I go first and me. You swear in me and then the district clerk. All right, very good. Thank you. Okay, so who will swear me in?
You can do it. I don't want to swear.
She doesn't want one. She only swears me in once.
Do you, after I'm appointed or no?
Yes,
Okay.
So we're gonna do action C, but then we're gonna follow.
Yes, I think so. All right, so we'll take C1. Okay, so I think you can, start, you can take it over.
Trustees, first of all, very happy to see what the Constitution means to me this week. Seems very relevant. All right, we will start with our business now. Action C is the district appointments, including the appointment of the district clerk. Do I have a
Motion.
Do I have a second? Do I have any comments or discussion on action C, which goes through numbers 1 through 15? I will point out that while we are appointing independent auditors under number 5, those are the external auditors, and we are still in the process of an RFP to find internal auditors, as our internal auditors recently left the business of internal auditing.
Right.
And so,
We
by
have-
law, we need to have internal auditors, so they would normally appear on this agenda, but they do not, and we're in that process.
We'll have an
Um,
update for you on that later.
Okay. Anything else? We're getting ready to vote right now, and she will be appointed. As soon as I say all in favor. I can go back. I've already made a motion on all the district appointments, which includes the district clerk. I understand that. I don't, is there a reason that you want me to split out district clerk from the rest of the things we're voting on right this minute?
Take the consent agenda and then you can speak. That's fine.
Thank you. All in favor? Motion passes. The district clerk is appointed, and we can swear her in.
Okay, let's see. Raise your right hand. Repeat after me. I
I, Elizabeth Matthews,
do solemnly
do
swear
solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of New
and
York,
the Constitution of the State of New York,
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties
of district clerk
of district clerk
of the Board of Education
of the Board of Education
of the North Shore Central School
of the
District
North Shore Central School District
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
Okay. 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 Gotcha. Trustees, action item D is the designation of banks and depositories. Do I have a motion? Second? Questions? All in favor? Thank you. Action E, designation of the official newspapers, the Glen Cove Record Pilot and the Seacliff Glen Head Herald Gazette. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Second. Questions? All in favor? Thank you. Action item F is the authorization of petty cash accounts and supervisors. Do I have a motion? Second?
Second.
Do we have discussion? I have some discussion on this. I think this does not appear to match board policy, which is 6670. In a couple of ways, the list of accounts doesn't match the policy, and I'm not sure the dollar amounts match the policy either. I would actually, and there's further discussion in the policy about accounts being looked at by the claims auditor, which I've never seen a report on. I would, I think we have to either fix this motion or change the policy. I'm completely open to either, but I'm not really comfortable passing it just like with it just not matching board policy. But that's my feeling. So the board policy says there's a limit of 100, so the high school's at 500. So it's possible that that's 5 different accounts, but then those accounts aren't listed. The board policy actually lists exactly which accounts we have. Are we okay to table it to August
Yes.
28th and come back with a solution on one or the other?
Yes.
Okay. I'll make a motion to table action F.
I'll second.
Thank you. Discussion of the motion to table? All in favor? Thank you. Action G is the establishment of the gasoline mileage allowance. Motion?
Motion.
Second? Discussion? All in favor? Action H, authorization to open bids. Do I have a motion? Do I have a second? Discussion? All in favor? Action I is the authorization to attend conferences. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Thank you. J is the establishment of tuition for non-resident students in special classes. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor? Action K establishes the per diem rate for teacher substitutes. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Discussion? All in favor? Action L establishes the hourly rate for homebound tutoring. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Second? All in favor? Action M establishes the rate for hourly workers. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
A second?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor? N is the readoption of all policies and code of ethics in effect. Do we have a motion? Second? Discussion? All in favor? Action O is the approval of the organizational chart. Is there a motion?
Motion.
A second?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor? Thank you. Action P is the appointment of the Committee on Special Education members. Do we have a motion?
Motion.
And a second? I had a question about how the committee's selected, which Peter discussed with me, but
Yep.
share with all of you.
So the how parent members are selected is they are solicited through an open process through SEPTA, and then once they are selected, they are trained through an organization called, excuse me one second.
There's training.
There's training,
Right.
and it's through LA, it comes through LIU.
Okay.
There was a time when we were using BOCES, but now it's done through LIU.
It's like Parents for Student Inclusion,
Yeah,
something
yeah,
like
yeah.
that.
Yep, absolutely.
Thank
Very
you.
well- It's well
Okay.
done.
Any other discussion? All in favor? Okay. Next. Next, we move on to the
That
special
concludes to
meeting.
this.
That is, we are adjourning the reorganization meeting, and we are moving on to the special meeting.
Correct.
Good. The first item on the special meeting is we have a hearing on the district-wide safety plan.
Correct. So,
Dr. Giarizza.
thank you. So every year, the district has a responsibility to adopt the safety plan. And in order for us to, it is important to us to have that safety plan in place before school opens, and before we can have that open, we need to have a 30-day, we need to have a hearing period followed by 30 days, with 30 days notice. So tonight is that hearing, and so this gives members of the public to ask any questions of us and the board related to the safety plan. And so if there is anybody from the public here who would like to ask us a question about that, we can, we are happy to answer your questions. Okay.
I think you're good.
You're welcome. So this will be posted, and folks can take a look at it and get their comments to us.
Which means by having a hearing, we actually vote to approve it at the next meeting.
The August meeting.
So-
That's correct.
People have an opportunity in between if they wish to ask questions. Okay, action 5 is the approval of the minutes from June 13th. Do I have a motion? I have a second? Questions? All in favor? Action 6 is the approval of the treasurer's report from May. Is there a motion? Thank you. Second? Questions? All in favor? Thank you. Under regular business, we have 4 discussions. The first is going to be the annual report on our district's goals and strategic plan from this past year.
Okay, so the board has seen a more complete report, so I wanted to do a general overview and of where we are with our strategic planning process. Tuesday and Wednesday of this week, we actually spent time as an administrative team reviewing all of the progress that we made this year, what things we had to have made as much progress on that we need to carry forward into the next academic year, and we did some preliminary planning for what our work plan will be for the 1920 school year. So as we've talked about, our strategic plan is structured into 3 main pillars, one on teaching and learning, one on equity for all learners, and the third on social emotional learning. And so we set out this year to build a series of steps that would be largely foundational. So you wouldn't see, so in the design of the plan, there weren't a lot of deliverables that you would see in terms of things that would happen, but the structures were, the work of this year was designed to put good strong structures in place. So that said, where is the first page of this? Where's the first page of this? Excuse me 1 second, I may have. Thank you, Betty. Okay. So the first pillar of the plan and the short-term goals were to create a K-12 curriculum council, which includes students. We have done that. That will be the research and development group that ensures that our curriculum remains current, purposeful, and challenging. We initially set out to create a contemporary instruction committee, including students, and so that morphed a little bit over the course of the year into what is now being called the Superintendent's Advisory Committee on Teaching and Learning, and that will be a group of parents, teachers, students, administrators who will work to advise us on things that are important to the instructional team to the students. It'll be a place where we bring ideas for research and consideration. And so the constitution of that will get off the ground this year, and we're looking forward to getting, more input and more process as it involves the curriculum review and cycle that we go through. We also set out to look at the professional development committee, and so you will see in the board has seen the set of learnings that will take place over the course of the summer. They are robust. They are very much tied to the goals of the strategic plan, and they are expansive. So that committee has done a lot of good work this year. Ongoing goals that will go on every year are obviously promoting excellence within a challenging academic setting and increasing rates of mastery on our assessments. So we have looked at, particularly in the maths and sciences, we have looked at mastery rates over the course of time. And so the board has, I've sent you the Regents results. I expect to be able to get you advanced placement and international baccalaureate results tomorrow. And so you will see that in the areas of focus that we set out on this year, there have been, the students have made gains. We'll do a more formal analysis of that over the summer, but in the aggregate data tells us that rates are definitely improving. In addition to that, what we started this year and what will continue, these are all goals that will continue, are researching ways for us to engage in enhance student engagement and commitment to learning. You will see over and over again through our strategic plan, through our actions, that student voice is very, very important to us. So when we have students on our interview committees for administrators, we are bringing students into our curriculum reviews. They are the most astute, informed people in the organization, and we need to be hearing more of them. Last year, the elementary program started to. We set this goal out for the whole system, but the elementary program has looked at the use of time. So in a period in a structured day where we have a certain number of minutes in which we have students and teachers, the most precious commodity we have all throughout the day is time, and the choices that we use, the choices that we make to use that time. So we are in the process of working through what we are calling a contemporary learning exploration block at the elementary level, and that will allow our teachers flexibility to make decisions about how they use that time, so kids can be involved in more unstructured settings. They can be outside if the teacher chooses to bring them outside. It's a place where we can use that time more flexibly. I think there are two in a cycle. Am I right, Chris? Right. At the secondary level, we are looking at next year, particularly at the high school, research and analysis and study on what a modified block schedule would mean for North Shore High School. So what essentially that means is, are there periods of the day where we have hour blocks of time? Are there other periods of the day where we have 40-minute blocks of time? And then how do we use those? So that will be forthcoming in the upcoming school year. And continuing to align our special ed and general ed programs with student needs. So you will see that even in some of the IEP recommendations for this year, that the CSCs are really thinking about customizing programs for kids. So you'll see hybrids of ILC and ICT and maybe some resource room, which has not always been the way it has it's necessarily worked. It's been kind of all or nothing. And so we're hoping to be able to, when we talked with the board last year in January about having a highly customizable program at North Shore, in the North Shore schools, we mean that for all kids. So so that is also in the works. We are continuing to foster a culture of growth. So we're really digging into growth mindset. the work and development of the skills and dispositions and learning progressions as they relate to the shared valued outcomes continues to be important work for us. And we are also looking to promote ourselves as a leader in the region. The North Shore education is a very unique and special education. We've talked about this, and so there are very discrete reasons for that. And so we want to make sure that we promote ourselves in that vein as well. In the Equity for All Learners pillar, we have been looking towards increasing our leadership capacity with regard to equity issues throughout the system. So as you know, last year we talked about training all of the administrators on 2 days of unraveling racism. We had the entire district trained in anti-bias in November. We then did some breakout sessions in the spring. That also will continue into the upcoming school year. So that's not something that has a beginning, middle, and end. It's one of these ongoing things where we're always looking to do it better. Same with developing and implementing K-12 anti-bias training. So we can always do that better. We don't want to use a singular lens of race as we look at that. So we are taking a very wide lens: race, gender, socioeconomics, class, LGBTQ status, special education, disability status. So lots of, and I'm probably missing a few, so at least a few. So, but they're all on our radar. This year, we did some targeted outreach to increase the application pool of diverse candidates this year, and so we will continue to do. We had some real success in getting more diverse pools. We will continue in those efforts. Next year, we'll develop a family liaison position that necessarily won't be a person who, it's not a job that someone will do, but it'll be a multidisciplinary team that meets to solve issues and be a resource to kids and families who need them in the community. We're looking to close achievement gaps for all subgroups, and so that will continue year on year. We spent some time in the retreat this week positioning ourselves to have the discussions about where those gaps exist, and then we will be very clear with the board about which ones are priority items for this year. We are looking to publish our equity story, so looking at all of our data analysis and who we are and putting that out there, and then having that inform what we do next. And then lastly, in the equity pillar, we're looking always to promote school environments that include, support, engage, and inspire diversity, and develop an awareness and understanding of the diversity of attitudes, values, beliefs, and experiences in North Shore to promote acceptance. So we have talked about this as a team. We need to focus on acceptance versus things like tolerance. And that will continue. Social emotional learning, we had our year was a little less consistent in that area. So we were able to get the multidisciplinary team together. We were able to get the needs assessment taken care of. We are putting together, the referral plan was put together. And we've looked at the schedule at particularly at the elementary level, and the development of the calendar for next year on how we schedule things. It's imperfect, but we're trying to do it better. The committee will meet with much more regularity this year. It'll be co-chaired by Bridget Finder and our soon-to-be new director of counseling, Dan Doherty. And we really do need, we're in critical need of getting middle school, high school voices into that discussion. We had heavy elementary voice on that committee by volunteer, but we really do need to get more secondary voice there. So I expect that you'll see an uptick in the progress that happens there. Next year we'll be really digging into what are the brain research based strategies. to promote well-being. We'll be looking at how to incorporate purposeful play, discovery, productive struggle, K through 12. And then we'll be also looking at being very discreet about the protective factors to reduce use of alcohol, tobacco, and other drugs, vaping. We've made some nice inroads in the spring this year with speakers. We intend to be much more explicit about that next year. As I said before, the work on our shared valued outcomes is ongoing. And so this year we worked on developing the dispositions, the skills, the learning progressions for problem solvers and committed individuals. This year, or communicators and thinkers. This year we are wrapping up problem solvers. And so we have a little bit of a shift in that the committed individuals may take a different spin, but because we think it just needs to be a little bit more organically addressed. And then we'll talk about innovators. The action plans from the 17-18 Tri-States team were developed. They have been shared with the administrative team. We now will develop the implementation plan for how we will address those in 2018-19. We reviewed our homework policies this year, so we had that discussion a couple of weeks ago. You saw the many meetings that committee had. They made some very strong recommendations for how we can move this needle forward. The first reading of that policy is before the board this evening. We conducted our external program audit in K-12 literacy. We have the final, the draft of the final report. I think that is forthcoming any time now. And then we will share with the board what the recommendations are for what's coming up in literacy. There are some very powerful, good recommendations that will help, I think, move the work forward in a very positive way. We took a look at the implementation of the Chromebook program, made some critical shifts. So you know that the 5th grade, we're going to bring those back out of, they'll be one-to-one, but classroom-based one-to-one, and that enabled us to increase the back and forth one-to-one to grade 8 for next year. The action plans in K-12 counseling that were developed several years ago, certainly before my arrival to the district. We had our presentation from Linda Binion back in April or May, where we were with all of those progress points and how they were all but resolved. This next one here, the operationalize our process to review evidence-based practices, that frankly just got away from us and needs to carry into the next year. We made a little bit we did a little bit of thinking on that, but it is one of those goals that we will carry forward into 18-19. And then developing the master plan and community process for a possible bond is not a bad segue into our next discussion, because we have spent a good amount of time over the course of the school year looking at what the needs are for a potential bond. And then finally, we did a compliance review through NYSBA of all of our policies, and we reviewed policies, the 4 and the 5,000 series this year. We've got all but like 2 or 3 hanging out there. But I want to, I've said it a couple of times, I want to thank Joanna and Tim and Rich Galati, who worked on that committee with us. We did a lot of work this year. So that is the year in a nutshell. Are there any questions?
Trustees? Questions?
Thank you to the committee for putting all the time and effort and hard work into revising the policies.
There were a lot of them. Yeah, it's great, very good work.
Thank you for
very
the
much.
report.
You're welcome. I know we've been trying to get to this one for a few meetings.
We have, yeah, we've been
It's
putting it
nice
off.
to finally get it done.
Right?
Yes.
We have to move on to more goals next time.
Yes, more goals.
More and more.
More goals.
Okay, so our next
Thank you.
discussion item is in fact the update on the proposed bond.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So I'm going to just provide an update
of where we are. I think most of you attended the community meeting. So there's not really much that has changed since then, but we wanted to just give the opportunity to inform everybody where we are and how the project is progressing.
Thank you.
So we will be talking about, the agenda is just, we're going to briefly go through the priorities and the goals. We'll talk about the process to date. We'll go through the scope of work in general, of where the big pieces of the scope are falling. Talk about some of the design work, and then we'll get into project costs, timeline, and if there are any questions, we certainly have time for that as well. So as I think we've talked about, the district is really focused on safety and security, infrastructure, instructional space, and also energy performance through an energy performance contract. Although the energy performance contract isn't necessarily part of the capital project, we are looking at it in conjunction with it in parallel to maximize it. So the goals are for the project to be tax neutral, which we've been able to accomplish thus far, focused on some bold and impactful spaces that affect a larger group of students where we can do that. Healthy, safe, and efficient space. And we're doing that both through infrastructure improvements as well as energy, and also looking at the spaces that we do touch, the instructional spaces, that they are contemporary and collaborative spaces for learning. So from October of 2018 until about April, we went through a pretty extensive exploratory phase and assessment phase, and met with several groups through the course of those months. We had a core team, which is the bond steering committee, which was made up of 3 of your fellow board members, as well as administration, and we met on a fairly regular basis, at least once a month, if not twice a month. We also met with all the district administrators, the principals, department heads, and all the leaders. We also had a security consultant come on board, who we met with and walked through all the buildings to do an assessment as well. And our architectural team walked through the buildings on several occasions. So the results of those many months of work was a school-by-school review that we did, that we developed a scope of work for each of the buildings. And this is just an example of what that looked like. So we addressed a number of items that came from both the building condition survey that was done in the past, as well as all the information we learned through the course of the fall into the spring. And again, addressed it in these categories of safety and security, instructional space, and infrastructure, and then also looked at energy performance and health and wellness as a general theme. So that kind of took us through April to May, and then we started looking at what all of this was going to cost, and started to prioritize the scope of work. So the initial scope was, we had, I think, 5 priorities that we were looking at, which totaled a sum that would have exceeded a tax-neutral project. So we really looked at how to prioritize that, and went down to looking at priorities 1 and 2 to develop a project that we thought we could push forward. We went through a reconciliation phase where we reconciled the estimates, so we are comfortable where we are. We've also selected a site and civil consultant who's being brought on board, and have initiated communication with the state education department, so they're aware of the work that North Shore is doing and the preliminary submission that we've started with them. And the energy performance contract, that we have received proposals from ESCOs who are awaiting a decision on that. So I'm going to run through the scope of work. The instructional space really includes, we're looking at each library or media center at each school, along with a STEAM lab that is in most cases associated with the media center. At the middle school, we are looking at a small addition and some renovation work. The addition will include a new entrance, an assembly space, a STEAM lab, and math and coding lab. The high school renovations are encompass some departmental reorganization to make both a math and science hub and a humanities hub to get those classrooms closer together and a better defined technology area. We're also looking at renovations to the choral, band, and orchestra rooms to create better performance spaces, both proportionally and with the acoustics. And also a new robotics lab, a defined lab that would be adjacent to the technology lab. We're also looking at some active classrooms, some breakout spaces to support some of the traditional instructional rooms, and some reorganization to the guidance suite and special education, life skills, and testing areas. So district-wide, we're doing a number of items that are non-instructional, that are really focused on infrastructure and just upgrades and improvements. We are doing selective bathroom renovations at all the schools, so there are a number of bathrooms that have not been addressed since the buildings were built. We are adding a transgender toilet room to each facility, renovating the nurses suite at Glenwood Landing, and doing a lot of door replacements for doors that are aged, both for, which addresses some of the safety and security components. We are doing secure entrance vestibules at each school, adding permanent cooling to all of the classrooms, and doing some tile replacement at Glenwood Landing. The high school, we'll talk about when I get to the high school project. We are enlarging the stadium, the bleachers at the high school, replacing the press box, and doing some district office repairs as well. The last several items really are focused on safety and security. So we are expanding and enhancing the video surveillance systems, upgrading card access, looking at intrusion detection systems, and integrating all those systems district-wide into one location. So this is just an example of some of the non-instructional scope of work at the elementary schools. And as you can see, for at Glenwood Landing and at Seacliff, we are actually adding an accessible entrance. So it's a combination of a ramp along with a landing that complies with accessibility requirements, and then a secure entrance vestibule as well. And then energy performance, we're really looking at lighting, modernizing lighting where we can, heating systems to optimize their performance, some building envelope improvements where we can do that, as well as HVAC controls, plug load management, air conditioning, as I mentioned, and potentially even some solar work. And we think that will total somewhere between $2 and $5 million, which is great because that actually comes out of the capital project altogether. So we are focusing on each of the media centers and libraries at all the elementary schools, and that's because this is a type of space that's really transitioned and shifted pedagogically. And it's a space that all of the kids use on a very regular basis. So we're looking for them to support both individual and collaborative learning, encourages hands-on creativity and problem solving, which is really focused on 21st century learning, inspires natural curiosity, and really are flexible spaces with ample technology to support how students are learning now. They will be age appropriate, so both the finishes and the furnishings for different grade levels. Natural daylight, which is something that already exists in each of the libraries, so that is something that we don't really have to address and we can take advantage of. And we will be looking at redesigning the spaces so that they're more flexible and provide informal and formal spaces to study. So I will mention that each of the spaces we are working in the confines of the space. We're not adding space to any of them. We're just doing a lot of reorganization. So they will be playful but appropriate. They support, active learning as well as rest time. So the students at a much younger age who really require some downtime. And again, flexible for both individual and group learning. So these are examples of Glen Head and Glenwood Landing. Glen Head is on the left, and you can see Glenwood Landing on the right. The images on the top are kind of a view that we look where you can sort of see the organization of the space and how they're laid out. The list in the middle is the number of the different types of spaces that each of the libraries and the media centers will encompass. So there will be a breakout room for each, or a classroom, group reading areas, reading stacks, informal seating, a typical circulation desk, a workroom, and again, a STEAM lab and computer stations that are distributed in each of these. And this is just the example of the Seacliff Library. Same components in all of them. So at the middle school, the work is a little bit more extensive in that we are putting an addition on that will do several things. So the addition is to connect where students now enter at the intermediate level to the upper level. And then what we'll be doing is creating a new secure entrance vestibule for both staff, for both visitors and students, and relocating the main office adjacent to that space. So that little yellow box that you see up here will become the main office, and the addition, which is outlined in black, will become the new entrance, as well as an assembly space that will be a flexible learning space. So this not only will help with improving instruction time, or the loss of instruction time, because now you don't have to walk all the way around and down from, if you're at the library, you have to walk all the way down the hall, down a set of stairs, down another hall, and all the way around, as well as it will create a new secure courtyard. So that's just an enlarged plan of that area. What you'll see is that the secure entrance vestibule will be a double vestibule adjacent to the main office that will enter into a lobby that actually really functions as an assembly space, a space for structured and unstructured instruction, as well as the addition of a STEAM lab and a math lab. So that is the view of the new entrance with the main office to the right of it, and the secure vestibule as well. And that's a view of the interior of the space. So you can see that from on the left, you have the doors from the entrance. What you're not seeing in the foreground would be the main office adjacent to it. And then the assembly space that really is a multiple function space that supports, again, planned instruction, unplanned instruction, assemblies, lectures, and those types of events that students are looking for now. And again, we will be looking at the media center and library at the middle school as well, same components. Working within the confines of the space, but looking at different furniture arrangements, flexibility to support breakout rooms, group learning, individual learning. Again, rich and heavy with technology to really function with tablets for day-to-day instruction. So the high school, we're making some reorganization improvements, again, to try to get most of the math and science classrooms together in the labs in one location, and then move most of the humanities classrooms in another location. So what you can see, the existing plan to the left, the top left, the green and the blue are sort of scattered all over the place. And those define the science rooms versus the humanities rooms. The proposed plan on the right starts to organize them a little bit different. So it's a matter of just some reorganization that we're doing, as well as adding a connecting corridor that now creates a secure courtyard off of the library. The other big thing we're doing is putting on a small addition to accommodate a main office that's now pushed out closer to the sidewalk, that allows us to put a secure entrance vestibule as well, and some public restrooms to support the auditorium, and provides ample lobby space for that. This is just an example of how the work is sort of scattered throughout the building. So the red component is the new office, the main office with the new entrance vestibules. And to the left of that are new bathrooms that would support the auditorium. And this is just an example of some of the work that we'll be doing. The band room will be renovated to really provide an ample space for performance and practice, and also accommodate the right layout for the students who are practicing in there. You can see the secure entrance view is called out, and then a new canopy that will allow for this addition to be put on the building as well. And so that's an example of what the new addition will look like, with a new entrance canopy coming out to basically the same place where it is now. But what this does allow for, again, is for a new secure entrance vestibule that controls how visitors are coming into the building, and really is tied to the main office. So right now, when you walk in this building, you walk through the doors and you're in the lobby. And I know that I've come in and just walked in at times. And again, we'll also be addressing the library at the high school as well. So this space will be transformed. Again, we're working within the confines of the space, but we'll be replacing the ceilings, replacing the lighting, moving all these stacks out of this location, lowering them where we can so that there's ample visibility across the space, and creating some small breakout rooms that really support kids breaking out into groups and working together. And all of that will be done in a way where the librarian can still keep their eye on everybody. And so that's an example of what this space might become. So project costs. So total project cost, $39.7 million. You can see how that's broken out between infrastructure, safety and security, cooling, site work, and instructional needs. And you can also see how that's broken down in percentage by school or by facility as well. So a $39.8 million project essentially achieves a tax neutral project and addresses all of the components that we talked about. So we just had our second community meeting actually a few weeks ago at this point. We also met again with the Bond Advisory Committee. We are looking at selecting a ESCO to perform the energy performance contract. The secret resolution, I think, is on the agenda tonight. And we will still be looking at cost estimating to try to tighten our numbers as much as we can. And then looking to pass a resolution for the bond so that we can have a public referendum in December of 2019. And that's where we are.
Thank you. Trustees, questions, discussion?
So I want to talk about some of the things that were taken out in between, in the beginning and in between our meetings. One of the things we took out in the very beginning was the renovation of the high school locker rooms, which are disgusting. I see that we took out the renovation of the Glen Head nurses station, which I believe Florence Nightingale trained in, and gets deleted every time. And it's also in the interior of the building, so if a parent has to come and pick up a student, they have to go through the building. The air conditioning at the middle school library, I'm all for renovating the library spaces. I think especially at the middle school and the high school, it's incredibly important to have a place where students want to come and be rather than wandering the streets, especially at the high school where we have an open campus. From my discussions with the people who work in Syosset's library, that has really been, since they've renovated, a place where people come. However, if we don't air condition the middle school library, it's going to be difficult to encourage people to get there. It just seems to me that I don't know how we're going to pay for the items that we've taken out. We have a lot of money being spent on security. I understand we want our students and our faculty to be secure. I don't think this card update includes any kind of card identification access system for the students, so the doors are unlocked in the beginning of the day when students are going in. And if you look at what goes on in society, it's frequently the students or former students that present the threat. So at $39.8 million, I'd like to know how we're going to address the things that we've taken out and what the plan is for that and what we are leaving on the table for other people. And is there a way that maybe we could spend some less money on the security to scale that down in some way with these entrances? Also with the middle school, we don't really know what's going on. We haven't had the civil engineers report yet, to the best of my knowledge. Maybe it's come in between. Is there a way we can sort of do some of those entrances, do some trial work, and not do all those entrances, and maybe address some of these outstanding issues that we keep putting off?
Does anybody want to respond, or do you want?
I think it might best be you.
So Olivia, do you have the all right.
And when do we anticipate having the money to do that?
I think we have enough money to go for phase 2 next year, and phase 2 is renovate the girls and boys locker room at the middle school.
But not at the high school.
Not at the high school.
The high school one, we don't have in any reserve.
Correct, you're right on that.
And it's like original equipment. The fixtures don't even work. Some of them.
So when we were looking to scope this, we took the air conditioning out of the library and the middle school and the Glen Head nurse's office, because we thought that in our planning that we would be able to time the use of the capital reserve with the implementation of the phased-in projects. So we wouldn't lose the projects, we would just fund them differently. The high school locker rooms were, I think, if I remember correctly, it was about $4 million. And we just had to make a decision to take a big project down, and that's where it came from. And so we will have to either create a new capital reserve to do that, or we have to reshift some monies around. As far as the student card access goes, we currently do have the ability to we have the technology in place through Scholarship to run student card access. So that's not something that we necessarily need to plan for in the bond. What we would need to do is, we talked about this at Health and Safety Committee, is tying this to our student management system. And so when students come in, they would swipe in and we would know where they are. The technology to have students swiping in class by class is very cost prohibitive to have a reader at each of the classrooms, so we're not quite there yet. And then as far as the secure entrance vestibules go, that's a we had made a strategic determination as we were going into the planning process that this was a priority of the work, that we wanted to make sure that the schools on their entry were secure, and so we planned one for all five sites. Certainly that we still support that, but we would take the board's feedback and direction on what to do as we get into final scoping.
I just have a question. With regards to the press box and the bleachers, why is that seen as a priority at this particular point? I mean, in particular with the press box, but also with the bleachers. I mean, I've been to events and I know homecoming, you know, sometimes it can overflow a bit, but that's, you know, once a year that I've seen that.
And the other is we like to separate home and visitors. Sometimes that's problematic.
And the press box?
The press box is just in bad shape.
Okay.
It needs renovation.
Is it a safety issue? That you're concerned about individuals going up there and getting injured, or?
So let the acting AD jump in. If she will, because you look like you have something you want to say. I don't want to put you on the spot, but you look like you're about to jump out of your seat.
The press box is in great shape. I would say it is a safety issue. I know when I got up there, we've had students up there now announcing games and the floor is ripped up a little bit. There's like holes in the floor a little, so I think that was an issue. That's concerning, and the stairs going up is so steep, some are wobbly. I know videographers now have trouble getting up and down, so I do think it is a little tricky.
I'm just curious what the cost is on that part of the project.
I'll tell you. I have it. I'm sorry. It's high school, right? It's toward the back, if I remember right. Yes. There it is. So the project total for the bleachers engaging is 411,000. Replacing the press box 411,167, and the press box is 112,136 in projection.
I have a question about the bleachers. Is it we don't have enough room for visiting team fans, or is it a behavioral issue of the opposing team's fans that come, and you want to separate them? If there isn't enough room for fans who come to, family and friends to come see the opposing team, I understand that. But do we have any data on that? Is somebody every day when we're having games?
I don't think somebody's count.
$400,000
Right.
for that is a lot of money. And if it's a behavioral thing, that's, you know, the opposing team needs to own, or our teams, we need to own our own adult supervision.
Right.
How could bleachers cost $411,000?
We could say this about everything.
I-
275. 500 seats.
I don't know how that benefits students.
I don't offhand. I can find out though.
When
Well, it's not that long ago.
And we didn't address that issue when we renovated the baseball fields? I mean, that doesn't make any sense to me.
But the fly balls does seem like an issue.
I mean, the fly balls are an issue. They didn't just become an issue, right? And that should have been done when we spent all this money renovating those baseball fields at the high school.
Olivia, did that come up in the conversations?
Right, the issue with the golf balls did not come up when we were designing the baseball. It came up after the fact.
It came up after the fact.
And we put up the netting, with, since then, twice, 2 iterations of extra netting to mitigate the problem. But we're at the capacity of what we can do with contracted, vendors, like the young equipment. We really need equipment a little higher, we need footing, larger footings,
Mhm.
higher poles, and a more robust net system.
Okay. Yes. That's true.
To get back to Lisa's question, you're not putting these advantages on the other side of the computer. Is that right?
No, that's not what that's not how it's been described to me. But I will follow up on that for sure. I think all the bleacher work is on the one side. There isn't quite enough width. Yeah, the depth over there is problematic. Although that would be great to be able to have home on one side, visitors on the other. There just isn't enough. There isn't enough depth there, and then it dips down.
I have the facility to get separation so clear, and the space is there, and sometimes that short surface
Mm.
It's a lot of money.
Yeah.
No, they're not.
I think high school locker rooms for the young ladies and young women, every student in the high school utilizes those, seems more beneficial. It's benefiting more students in their dignity and their health and their care as they participate in athletics, which is a priority for us. I just wanted to state that.
Thank you. Does anyone have other items they want to, on the bond, to discuss? Dave?
That Glen Head Nurses Suite was gonna be something I was gonna mention, so it's in the capital reserve, so, but it's not in phase 2, you're saying?
It's not in phase 3.
It's on a hope and a prayer phase.
When we took a tour at the beginning of last year, you remember this, Dave? I was
do.
astounded at that space.
It's a HIPAA violation.
Just the dignity of the young children that come in there and they're sick, or they're coming in to get their medication that they require to attend school.
Yeah.
There was even a lactation room attached to it, which seemed to, and we can speak to that, it seemed to afford limited privacy for our staff who would like to utilize that space. I was really confronted by it.
Yeah, I would say of all the things we saw on all those tours, the roofs, I've been on other things, it's probably the #1 space in this entire district that needs help.
It was eliminated from the last bond too, just so everyone knows. It was eliminated from the bond we did in 2013, 2014. And there is absolutely no privacy in that suite, and I can't even. It needs to be addressed.
Well, I was gonna say, if it can be in an earlier phase of the capital reserve fund work, it can get done sooner, potentially sooner than with the bond. The time frame is unclear to me, but I think we're all clear that we'd like it to be wherever it can happen soonest.
Do we have flexibility within those phases within the capital reserve?
Yeah. It's something that I want to discuss with you, to whether we can push the middle, if this is competition between the nurses school and the middle school, which is
Middle school locker rooms are not in good condition. I don't think anyone's saying
We all
that, so they
agree.
certainly need help.
So it sounds to me, like the board would like us to at least map out the staging and the timeline for that Glen Head nursing project. So if we were able to show to the board that we could time that to happen in the same way that it was happening within the scope of the bond, then the source of the funding is just the source of the funding. Is that what I'm hearing?
I think so. We just, We
Well,
want it to
I'm
be
concerned,
certain.
I'm concerned because we were talking about, in the bond, moving the nurse's office more forward. Right now, it's in the depth of the school. And it was my understanding that for security and privacy purposes, that we were talking about moving it forward, sort of opposite the gymnasium,
Yes.
library area in Glen Head, rather than all the way, you have to go in through, down the hallway, and down another hall if you're picking up
Yes,
a sick student. So
yes.
I don't know if you're gonna do it in a bond project, how you're gonna move it. I mean, you can just renovate it if you're doing it at a different time, but if you're redoing the whole front of the Glen Head School for security purposes, you're rearranging everything to put it in the STEAM lab, redoing the library, it makes sense to me, I don't know, we're ripping out the whole front to move the nurses station then, rather than put everything up in the front and then decide later on, we're
Well,
gonna move the nurses station.
That's exactly what I'm saying. I'm just saying the funding would come from a different source.
you can still do the projects in conjunction.
Correct. That's exactly what I'm saying. So, is that what I'm hearing?
Take a look.
Yes?
I-
Okay.
I'm still concerned about the amount of money that we're spending on front entrances and security. And we still, at the high school, I think it's essential that we know at least who is in the building for the students. God forbid there's a fire or an emergency. It doesn't have to be, something as dramatic as a school shooting. It really doesn't. But the kids come and go pretty freely at the high school. The doors are, they're in and out. If we are going to spend this kind of money on security, we need to know where our students are and who's in the building, especially if we have a situation, God forbid, where one of the students has posed a threat on social media and we have no way of knowing if that student is in our building. We
Well,
should know.
So we have the tech. I'm sorry to interrupt you. Finish.
No, I'm saying, you're saying we have the technology, but I don't see that in the plan for the front entrance to be done.
It doesn't have to be. No. Listen. What am I not answering that you're?
No, I'm frustrated that we're spending $35 million on security, and you're telling me we have the technology, but I've raised this at every meeting. We haven't set a plan in motion to swipe those kids in and out. As it is now, we're going to spend a fortune redoing the front entrance of this high school, to put in a security booth, to check outsiders in, but the doors are going to be wide open in the morning, and anyone can walk through those doors with anything in their backpack. And we have no control over that. And we don't know what kids are in our building and what kids are not in our building, Because let me tell you, I've gotten phone calls that my kid has not been in class when they've been in class, or that phone calls, I mean, it's ridiculous to me if we're spending the money that we're not doing it right. It's like redoing the baseball field and not putting up the right netting. It's frustrating.
So I hear you. We're not, so there's a couple of things. We're not spending $35 million on security in the project. The
35% of the project.
Thirty-
not security.
10%.
We have that actually broken out. I don't have it with me, but you may have it in the packet that we got from.
So the second piece of that is the scholarship kiosks are they're freestanding kiosks that we put in the lobby. So when we went, for example, when we went to look at how Syosset High School is doing this, they put 3 or 4 or 5 kiosks out every morning, and kids swipe in through lines. That's how they bring in, I think, 3,000 students at Syosset High School every day, and they do it pretty seamlessly. What we don't want to do, and I know that this has been frustrating for the board, and you are right to be frustrated by this as a board, is we don't want to do work twice. So when the secure entrance vestibule goes in, we will design the kiosks to go in around the vestibules, but I don't want to install the kiosks now only to have them have to be, to destroy them to move them. Do you see what I mean?
Are the kiosks expensive?
The kiosks are several $1,000s each.
But they're not like,
No, they're not hugely expensive. We would just buy them out of the operating budget.
Can I just?
We have one at each of the. Sure, we have them. We have them at each of the elementary schools now. So when you come in, you present your license. They have a student module where you use your ID card to swipe in. We have the technology to do that.
So Syosset High School has 2,000 kids in that building.
3,000. I believe.
3,000.
Yeah.
They have to swipe, or if it's passive or whatever it is, at those kiosks to get in,
And to leave.
meaning there is some kind of turnstile.
No, there is not. So there are. So imagine.
It's like an entranceway, a door you go through. Not
Well, so
an
you-
open door, but
Right,
yeah.
so you come in the front door, right? And so imagine in this room here, so if you were to look at those bank of chairs there, imagine space between each of those chairs,
Okay.
right? And so students queue up, and there is a security or monitor at each of those.
So you swipe your card, you get a green light, you go in.
Exactly, and if it's red, they send the kid to the main office.
Okay.
Right, that's how, and they do it, they were not concerned about the time that it took when we were there. So we could do that. We just want to make sure that we design the layout of that in tandem with the layout of a vestibule, because otherwise we feel like we would be wasting money.
When we were to go into the next phase of design, that's when we would incorporate that piece of the component. And we're not there, because this is concept design, but certainly looking at schematics, we would start to incorporate that.
And that's included in the cost.
Well, that piece it would be from the operating budget, but yes, it's included in the design, designing it along with it.
At Elliott K, myself, and Michelle Hall sat down during after the budget passed, because this is something that we are also trying to do right from the bus passes, which we talked about during the budget process, because we want kids to have ID cards, so it will be tied. What we want to do is we want to make it so comprehensive that it will be tied completely to Power School from the bus. When the kids get into the bus and they swipe in, it will be tied into Power School. When they come in and they swipe at, kids who walk in, when they swipe at the front entrance, it will be tied into Power School. So we are working all this out with Elliott K, because he is the one who has to bridge everything into the Power School module.
I just want to make sure that we are doing that,
Yes.
because I never got an affirmative answer that we are doing that. Because there's no sense in putting in a security booth and not knowing who's in your building.
Yes.
There's absolutely no sense in that.
So the the last part of this, I think of what we're talking about are the high school locker rooms. So if the high school locker rooms are a priority for the bond, then we need to go back and figure out where we can shift that $4 million. So we will need the board's direction, if that's what you want us to do, because that's a heavy lift.
Yeah, that's essentially we have to swap other stuff from one account to achieve a tax neutral budget.
Well, I think one area is I'm not sure the cost of these, you guys obviously look at them, but we want renovated entryways that can facilitate these security issues that we want, or certainly something like the middle school project, to me, ticks all the boxes. It's instructional, it's infrastructure, it's safety, security. And so for that's a key one I wouldn't necessarily want to be looking at. Some of the ramps, some of the elementary schools, I'm not sure that we're addressing a problem that is necessarily a problem right now. So that could be an area that I think we could look at.
Right, so the secure entrance vestibules, if in the draft that I sent home to the board, so of the $3.8 million that we have allocated for safety and security, the secure vestibules and entrances are $1,331,509. We have about $500,000 in door work, $750,000 approximately in card access, $840,000 in video a closed circuit video surveillance system, $275,000 in intrusion detection system, and $149,000 in visitor management. So even if we were to take all those secure vestibules out, we would have a $1.3 million, and we would still have $2.7 million to bridge for the locker rooms. So I'm not sure it quite gets us there, but what we could do is if we go back and we take a look at those accessibility issues, we might be able to make some headway there.
The only problem with doing that is we want people to come in and out of one entrance, right?
Right.
And if you don't have ADA access to the front entrance, it becomes an issue because now you have to have the security person leave the front to allow someone in a different door. And I also don't know if we're gonna be ADA compliant if we redo the front entrances and don't provide for access. I don't know.
Because you have provisions to allow somebody.
We have, as long as we have alternate provisions, it's okay. Okay.
So there are still options of eliminating the accessible entrance at the main entrance, because we would have to provide provisions for different locations. But the entrance vestibules are, a secure entrance vestibule is your first means of sort of deterrence of time. And so as design professionals, we would certainly advocate for, if you're gonna do security work, that's very important.
Should all come in. Yeah, you should come, if you're gonna do security work, you're gonna spend the money, everyone should come in and out one door. I mean, that just, right, I mean.
So we.
The only other way to look at it for that, in that regard, is when if you don't have the occurrence of somebody coming in on a regular basis who needs access, and it's mainly for public events, and your public space is at a different location, and there's an entrance located for that particular event that is accessible, then you can kind of get around it that way. But you're correct, it's still two separate entities.
Anytime a kid is on crutches,
Yes.
we have a student that needs the
Yep.
entrances.
So the good news is we have the two security folks during the day now, so we don't have to leave the front entrance unmanned in order to accommodate getting someone else into the building, so that accommodates that, that concern that you raise,
That's interesting.
right?
Yep.
So, so we don't have the board, so we're gonna need we should probably talk about this for a few minutes, because we definitely are going to need some direction from you on some modifications, if there are modifications to be made.
If we do the secret vote tonight, can we do that and still modify the scope of the bond?
Yes.
Yeah.
It doesn't make a difference, because that's just
it's not-
environmental impact, and no matter what we do,
Yes.
it's not gonna modify the environmental impact.
No.
Right, okay, that's what I just wanna make sure,
Yeah, no,
because
we'll
you
be
have
fine.
to do that because of timing.
Yeah.
I think if we're gonna talk trade-offs, we have to see price tags, so we have a sense of what we're doing.
That's the problem, right, is without, I think that's what the board needs is, you know, these are some trade-offs you could make, because we don't have a good sense of the scope. I mean, the other piece of it is, if we felt there was some other clear route on the high school locker rooms, that'd be one thing, but we're already talking about when can we even get to the nurses station with the capital reserve fund, and it's a big chunk of money, it's hard. Like, it feels like the time frame on doing the high school locker rooms any other way would be, I don't know. like
Who
a
knows?
decade,
That's
right? I'm
really,
like,
and,
right,
and,
I was
and
like,
we,
I don't see a
and
path
they,
forward on it.
we cut them out the last time. They were supposed to be in the bond that we didn't go forward with. Now we're once again taking them out.
And these are our mechanisms, we have the capital
And-
reserve,
and-
we have
and-
the,
I was told the last time that some of those fixtures are not operational and can't be replaced any longer because they're obsolete. Unless, it's like this old house.
All right, so, it sounds to me like I'm hearing that the high school locker rooms are a significant priority for the board.
Well, I think we need to have a plan to address them. They don't necessarily have to be in this bond, but we have to have a concrete plan to address, they are and I think as legislation comes along and you have privacy issues that you have to accommodate, one bathroom in the building is not going to address people's privacy issues or any potential legislation on transgender students, privacy issues. To me, I really think that we need to look at this. To me, it's a serious concern.
Yes?
well, I mean, if the bleachers are $500,000, I'm like,
The showers, the
Everything.
toilets, it's everything. And
It's
the tile,
ventilation.
it's everything.
I just did them in the district before, in my former district, and they were over 3, and they were much smaller than these.
It's a big project. And that's why I'm concerned about leaving it out.
Yeah.
Because it's a big project. There are certain things you can leave out and you can fund later.
because you
This,
could do it piecemeal.
because you could do a piecemeal, you have fund balance. This is a significant project. And that's why I'm concerned about leaving it, especially when you're talking about, we already have a capital reserve that we're trying to fund to do the other projects that we need to do, right? Like,
Yeah.
fixing Florence Nightingale's nurses station.
But
So
that's historic, yeah.
it's ridiculous.
So maybe the answer is that to me, a bond is an opportunity to do things you can't do through budgeting, that you haven't already allocated through other large-scale mechanisms like the capital reserve. So we keep looking at it as what's something else big we can get rid of to make room for that. Potentially the answer is get rid of many, many small things that you would be able to get through in other ways. So for example, the tile work at Glenwood Landing,
It's already out.
it's not out.
It's out on the
She
list.
said tile.
It's in here, I think.
I heard her
It's in
say
the
It's
list.
not out.
Some of it's out.
It's not out.
It was listed tonight in this presentation.
But I thought some of it came out, right?
Maybe we're not talking about the same school. She said tile.
Glenwood Elementary School, Corridor wall tile replacement and painting is on the deleted list. The deleted list, deleted projects.
Yeah, I
'Cause
see.
it's on it's on this.
Okay, I
deleted
just know in her
list.
presentation, when she went through non-instructional, corridor wall tile replacement at Glenwood Landing. But that's just an example I'm using.
Yeah, I know,
doesn't
I just
Yeah.
happened
matter
to
about
notice it
them.
was, I actually
Gotcha.
highlighted it.
Got you,
I was
because that's
surprised
something
to see
that
it deleted.
is not going to pay for high school locker rooms, but on the other hand, yes, that needs to be done. I know I've talked about this with John before, but that could potentially be done in all honesty, in 2022, 2023, when you had some fund balance and some time to do that. We can still have students safely in that building with tiles. And maybe there are several projects like that that we can put in some list of things we'd like to try to get done that will enable us to do the bigger chunk type project. That's more difficult, finding 15 smaller things, but that might be a path around it.
That's where we are.
Well, I don't know where you are, so you have to tell me.
I'm like,
We need to see what all the, I guess we need to see a list of everything with price tags, right?
Well, you have that.
We-
Not here tonight. No,
Okay.
not here tonight, but that,
Okay,
We've gone through several rounds
Yeah,
of
yeah.
prioritizing, and there's a cost associated with every scope item.
okay.
So it sounds like we may, in a supplemental meeting, to actually work through this, because I'm not sure it's gonna get resolved tonight.
I don't, it's not getting resolved
It's not
tonight.
getting resolved
That
tonight.
we can refer to and
But I don't think the entire board had that information in the very beginning.
Yeah.
I think they were not apprised of what the scope was. A lot of them only saw any of the information at the public meeting. So if we, no sense going backwards, but in all fairness, I don't think the board had the entire scope.
so in my last letter to you, I sent home the summary report, the detail report, and with all the finances. So I guess I would ask the board, do you want to deal with this, the next step of this through bond steering, or do you want to do this as a whole board?
I think the whole board needs to be in on this.
What the board who's not on bond steering, what do you guys think? 'Cause we've seen it more than they have.
I would like the full board at this juncture, as we're approaching, actually advocating for a bond to the community. I'd appreciate a full scope. And I'd like to see a list of what's been deleted.
Great.
So that's all, you have that, you have that.
It's in that, in the packet, there are deleted, it doesn't have the price tags with the deleted items.
If you go into the detail, it does.
I know, but I'm just saying the list,
Right.
it's there, it's just not all in the same place, is what I'm saying to you.
So should we calendar a date for a meeting now?
Yes. There is no other way to do it. I'll start with a proposal from you, Dr. Giannison.
Thursdays generally work for the board, right?
Let's say yes.
Okay. Pardon me? I haven't
know
thrown any
which.
dates yet, right? So, we could certainly meet next on the 18th,
I'm not here
Um,
on the 18th.
and then I'm gone for the 25th and the 1st, so then the next opportunity after that would be the 8th.
8th is fine for me.
Yeah, I'm around.
I'm free.
Works for me.
I think I'm good.
Wow. Book it.
I don't know about Rich, I'll have to.
You only had to go out a month. See, that was a piece of cake. Great.
It's like a unicorn. Okay. So we will,
August 8th.
so August 8th, is there a time the board prefers?
7.
7.
Okay.
I'm just, because we're
Yep.
talking about a public meeting, that's
think
what we
that's-
usually do,
yep,
right?
that's
I mean,
great.
In
Mhm.
public, If we're all meeting, it has to be in public, has to be known.
Okay, is there anything that the board needs that I can send you?
To me, it would be helpful if we had a list broken down by the 4 buckets of each item that was listed with a price tag, and then a dark line, and then below that, the ones that didn't make it with price tags.
I wouldn't mind some proposed sets of trade-offs, like if you wanted the locker rooms, you could have them. If you didn't, you know, just make some,
It's like a horse trade.
give us a few
Okay.
scenarios. I'm not promising to, you know, everyone will take one. I'm just saying, help have the conversation.
Okay. Okay, anything else?
Anything else you want for that meeting?
Well, we should be talking about, we have to do it as a bond steering first, but we should be talking about the, energy performance
Yes.
contract at that meeting
Right,
too.
so
Put
we
it
need the
on
bond
that same
steering.
agenda.
I have a quick question about traffic analysis. Is that something that's going to be done through a civil engineering, I guess, survey with, from what I understand? Right. Right.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, we have them right, we conduct the traffic study at the middle school. They just, what they do is they're a normal drop off and then pick up at the end of the day or coming and going, they have to monitor that, people and watch traffic going. So they're pretty close with that position.
They can start the process though before at least to have at least a initial kickoff meeting and talk to hear from, you know, the users and from the board what the issues are. At least to get them started before they do the evaluation.
I think it'll be very interesting with the middle school, given that the main entrance is going to be at the lower circle.
That's why we
And
want to do the
it's
starting.
It's difficult now instructing parents and visitors. You can only imagine it may get more complex, but if there's a solution that can be determined, that would be wonderful.
All right.
We'll have some very happy drivers on campus.
Sure.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, please do.
Susan Bailey, then,
The new press box?
Yes.
We haven't designed it yet.
so I'm like, turns if we have.
Yeah, if we know that they're filming from the top, then obviously we would have to guardrail up anyways.
Can you do the press box independently of the bleachers? I should probably know this, but I have no idea.
I think
why
so.
not?
Yes.
I'm just checking.
Yes, I believe so. So, so in preparation for the 8th, we will work out detailed costs by category, what's in, what's out, right? What's in supplemental, we'll also give that to you, what's in, because there are some things that we took out of the main scope and listed them as supplemental projects. I think it's good for the board to know what those projects are. You know, we'll have a discussion about those as well. And then we will propose, you know, various scenarios to accomplish the $4 million ad. Yes?
Thank you.
Okay. And then we will try to finalize the energy performance contract discussion that same night. And then what I would propose that we do, maybe not now, unless you'd like to do it now, is we can get an email out tomorrow and have a and get a meeting of the bond
Bond
steering
steering,
committee
right.
to work through the details of the EPC so
Right.
that we're prepared to make a recommendation to the board on the 8th.
Okay, yes,
Yes?
yes.
Okay, this was a good, productive discussion. Thank you.
We could take out the air conditioning.
Pardon
Do
me?
the locker rooms. The air
You
conditioning,
could, that is a-
the additional air conditioning is like $3 million.
$3.2 million. That is,
Right,
that's
exactly.
definitely an option.
And the locker rooms are 4.
That is absolutely true.
No, that's in addition to the EPC. The 3.2 is in addition to the EPC. It's on top of it. The EPC only takes care of part of Glen Head Middle School and the high school. And then you have another 3.2 in air conditioning.
That is absolutely an option. Okay,
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 all right.
well, thank you. Is there anything else for Tina or Daryl before?
We move on. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll connect tomorrow. Okay. Good night, everyone. Safe home.
Trustees, if it's okay with you, I'd like to make a motion to amend the agenda to move board committees up. It shouldn't take long. It'll free somebody up.
We do have an appointment of someone who's been waiting.
Yes.
Has little children. I just wanted, we're gonna be moving things around.
I will continue in that vein then.
The children have escaped from Garden City at this point.
Do you
You
want,
can have dinner too then.
do you want me, do you want me to move up personally? Do you want to, would you like to make a motion?
Yes, I would like to make a motion. I would like to make a motion to pull out the appointment of the Director of Guidance from action item
6,
6
We'll see.
and
do it now?
do it now.
A second?
Can I, wait,
Nope.
wait.
What? What?
Only that
Yes.
We also,
appointment,
In
we
case
have a,
there's
because the rest of them aren't here, but.
Well, we can have additional motions too. You want to,
wanna-
there'll be another
you
motion
want to do
too?
a second one? Because
All
we
right,
have another
so-
teacher here too.
All in favor of this motion? I'd also like to move that we go ahead and pull out, what?
The appointments of the certified teachers.
The appointments of the, at this point, I think we could just
You could
move
take the
up
whole you could take the personnel.
section. Okay. I have a new motion. I'd like to amend Marianne's motion to move that, we move the entirety of personnel up to now.
It's fine.
Fine.
Second.
All in favor? Just, we're good. What? We're discussing.
Well, you can we can table my motion, make a motion to table my motion to pull out the personnel item. The motion is to move the entirety of action item 6 to before comments from the, before
I think she
board
did it
committees.
appropriately. She amended what we had just voted on. I think that's
You
That's
could- You
okay.
could do it.
I think it's
Doesn't make
okay.
a difference. The end result is the same. We're voting on personnel.
Okay, do I have a motion on action item number 6?
Motion.
Motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
second.
Is there any discussion?
Don't let the delay fool you, we're very.
No.
We really are just trying to do it right. We don't want somebody to come back and say, it's invalid. Any discussion? All in favor? Any congratulations?
I would like to offer my congratulations. Tonight we welcome Dan Doherty to the North Shore Schools. He actually has been here since, you see his appointment is retroactive to Monday the 8th. Dan emerged through a pool of very talented candidates. He comes to us from Herrick's High School, where he's been a counselor for, I didn't bring my notes with me, I think 13 years, right? Okay. And so what resonated to us about Dan's candidacy the most was his commitment to supporting the social emotional learning of all kids. His work, he's a guy who has worked as a coach in the football program at Herrick's High School, where he's had varsity football players doing yoga and being mindful and translating those exercises onto the field. We really that really resonated with us. He's done outstanding work in reaching the needs of all kids. There is a program called Excel in Herrick's with students who are struggling in a traditional academic program, and he has led that program and gotten the students enrolled in that program. Not only graduated but into college programs. That was really important to us. He's also done very good work in helping students and facilitating their admission into some of the finest institutions of higher learning in the country. So it is with great pleasure that I welcome you, and look forward to the work that you will build within the program. So welcome aboard, Dan.
Welcome.
And we also welcome a new ENL teacher tonight, right? This is Lisa Daly. And Lisa, remind me where you're coming from. Right, in the city, right? And so also a very experienced ENL teacher, has a lot of co-teaching experience, and we are excited to welcome you aboard as well. So welcome to you.
Welcome to North Shore. All right. We have many more exciting things to do. Board, don't be concerned. We will now make more parliamentary procedural moves. If you don't mind, I would like to make a motion to next establish board committees in another bid to release the audience members. Motion to move up board committees to now. Is there a second? All in favor? Okay. I'm going to go ahead and do board committees. At what point are we hearing the LAC report? It's presumably part of this.
Board committees, so I think board committees can cover assigning us to board committees.
As well as, well, that's what it is, but we're going to let our LAC report be in the board committee section too. Cheryl, do you want to go ahead and give the LAC report? Is that okay with you? It's almost on.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Hello, how are you? Hi, my name is Cheryl Brown, and I am the chairperson of the Legislative Action Committee. This year we had a very productive year. We welcomed 4 new members, Tracy Bacher, Ralph Casey, Jessica Ward, and Dan O'Connor. This year we decided not to do a legislative night every year. So we skipped it this year, but have already begun planning an event that will be held in January of 2020. We also intend to have a legislative breakfast with just North Shore and our local officials in October. We're beginning to plan that as well. This year we created 6 working subcommittees, and each member joined whatever committee that they felt that they could best serve. One of the committees was APPR. APPR stands for the Annual Professional Performance Review. Legislation this year was amended that eliminated the mandate to use state exams as the measure of student performance. This passed in both the Assembly and in the Senate. APPR will now be collectively bargained as to what assessment would be used to measure student performance. Our second committee was the School Safety Committee. The district has been comprehensively reviewing safety and security protocols. They have worked with the Nassau County Police Department and the district security consultant throughout the year. An example of some of the new procedures for this year's graduation were having all guests enter the ceremony from a single entry point, as well as checking bags. The third committee that we had was the School Elections Committee. The New York State PTA is asking everyone to support A 4743, S 5287, which would allow school districts to opt out of serving as a polling place for elections. So please consider calling your state legislator to support this. The teachers' next committee was the TRS committee, which is the Teachers Retirement System. The estimated employer contribution rate for 2019-2020, this coming year, is 8.86. This is a decrease from the current school year when the rate was 10.62. Super LAC had been disbanded due to the lack of interest from Garden City and Manhasset. However, we will be working more informally, led by Dr. Giarizza, with neighbors Jericho and Syosset to look into common legislative issues and solutions.
Perhaps. And our last committee was American Water. The Town of Oyster Bay and Supervisor Saladino are ramping up their efforts from their side on working towards getting the area municipal water, getting our area municipal water. They're 100% supportive. American Water is one of the multiple New Jersey companies being investigated concerning tax breaks that they received. The North Shore Concerned Citizens continue to update the LAC on its efforts, ensuring that the district is well informed and involved. And that's it.
Terrific, thank you.
Thank you.
We need committee members. District Construction Steering Committee. Marion, Dave,
I'll stay.
stay?
Sure.
All right, we're staying.
Great.
District-wide health and safety has been myself, Lisa, and Rich. Rich said he was happy to stay.
I'm happy to stay.
I can stay. Or not, if somebody wants, Board policy review, Joanna, Rich, and Tim.
I'll stay.
Rich said he would, okay. Good. Legislative action, I believe this is the one Rich said was a conflict for him.
Yes.
Although we certainly don't have to have 3 trustees there either. Marion, did you want to stay?
If someone else wants to take it, that's fine.
Did you
I'm
want to
okay.
stay? No one has strong feeling. Is there anyone desperate to be on LAC?
I'll stay for another year.
I think you might be staying. You don't, we could even have one if you don't want to do it, but it's up to you.
No, you need someone to sub in case someone's not there.
Okay. Okay, staying. IEP reviews, Lisa and Tim.
I'll stay.
I'm
Yep.
fine with it, yep.
Great. Review of attorney bills, Marion and Rich.
I'll stay.
And Rich said he would. I'm not misrepresenting Rich, am I? I printed out his
Nope,
email, I
I've
tried
got
to
it.
really get this
Nope,
straight.
I've got it.
Okay. Athletic advisory, it has been Joanna, Lisa, and Tim, although
It hasn't met.
it didn't,
It should meet again. It needs to be
it should
It
meet
should
again.
meet.
Yes, I think,
I'll stay if
I
it's,
think a lot of us have had.
yes, I'll stay if it's going to, come out of its dormancy.
I'll stay. And I-
Great, because we've talked about a lot of things
Yep,
about
I will make it so.
Yes.
I will
what
make it
coaching
so.
positions we have and so on and so forth. Wellness committee has been me, and recently it's been me. I tried to convince Lisa to also join it.
Successfully.
Yeah, excellent.
All
So
right.
Lisa's going to be on it. Joanna, are you doing that or no? Yes. Okay.
So Sarah, Lisa's replacing you? Or you're a
I'm
little...
I'm going to stay on it.
I wrote your initials down already, so,
I'll stay, but I'm transitioning away, I think, probably.
okay.
That's what it sounded like.
I've got little parentheses.
I think we need to start bringing in other people. So like, for instance, I think maybe a year from now, our discussion about construction steering might be very different and,
Yes.
needing more people to have more.
Yeah, on construction steering,
Mhm.
just to go back to that for a second. Where are we with getting 2 community members on it?
I'm pretty sure Shelley drafted an application and I'm supposed to look at it and show it to you guys.
Could we do that?
I think we should.
Because we
Because-
also,
I think
Because we want someone in place in September. If you're gonna do a bond and you're gonna vote on it in September, you should have your community members on board.
I agree.
and in that brochure, we also have LAC people we're gonna have to solicit. And I think it's time to have the liaison to the audit committee also, we talked about being someone we're gonna seek from the community again. So that one brochure is gonna cover those?
No, I think they have to be
3 separate
separate. I don't think we can.
Yeah, I don't think we could do it in one.
Three.
Did you?
I saw one iteration that was combined, I thought. There were a lot of flaps.
All right, well, I have to look at it.
That's gonna be confusing.
That's, I think, is going to be too confusing. Okay. Community member applications.
I mean, Marianne's right, this is the time to think about it, because
Yeah.
we're not meeting.
Because
100%.
if we're gonna interview people, we need to do it in August, at our August meeting. So you need to get the brochure out, the applications back, reviewed, and I mean, if we could have,
Sometimes we end up with separate meetings too, if it's a lot of
right,
people.
it's just,
I know.
Let's get the ball rolling on the
The
ad.
thing, yeah. Is there anything else we're doing under board committees besides that?
Who is going to chair the athletic advisory committee with Rob Klabicki is retired.
Oh, thank you, that's a good point.
Yeah, there's a couple of Rob
I guess
Klabicki's
that
on
goes
here.
to you, Chris.
We
Yeah,
just left the,
Congratulations.
Rob looks different, I don't know.
No, we
You're
left
sitting in that
the,
chair, you're volunteering.
we just left in the administrative liaison column, we just left those as the 18-19 people. I'll work on that with Chris and Olivia.
Of course, you could always ask Dan Doherty to do it too. Nuke
That
it on the
is-
block. They
Yes.
get what they get, and they don't get upset.
How's he gonna say no?
And so we're working on other committee assignments as well, so we'll include this.
Peter, I just want to mention how
Too bad he
cooperative Chris Marino has been through the whole year with any questions or concerns that I relay to him.
Wonderful.
And I learn something new every single
That's great.
segment.
I always appreciate reading your interchanges with each other because they are like
I spot stuff.
instructional. Well, you spot stuff and then they are instructional. It's
So I
actually,
appreciate that.
we
And I know
appreciate
they're very
the-
busy at this time of year getting the IEPs out, so.
well, we also appreciate the effort that you and Tim are putting into getting to those questions, so thank you.
Okay.
There were 100, what was it, Betty? 133 IEPs? Thank, so, right. No, but that's just an indication of how busy that those people are between, I mean, April and May and June. No, there are a lot of May. It did include June.
Okay.
And some reconvened.
We have 2 more committees. Let's go, guys. I'm gonna have to wear the bunny slippers.
What, the committees? We've
Okay.
did it.
No,
discussion.
there are 2 more. You have 2 more. You have
What?
strategic planning there,
What did I miss?
and you have,
No, we updated, there's an updated one.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
sorry.
Okay. I'm
Uh,
looking at the one on Dropbox. Okay.
I think we're good. So, for those
Okay.
of you who've been following along closely with the agenda, we're obviously up to discussion number 3, the policy review. I am going to try to group the policies, but I'm gonna keep them in the order in which they appeared in Dropbox, even though that's not sequential. You know what I'm saying? They're not in Dropbox in.
Do you want to do comments from the public
Order.
or policy? Let's,
No.
policy's a big one. These,
I don't have strong feelings. I think I'm most worried at this point about y'all getting exhausted. Okay, so the first group of policies we will talk about, in the order in which they're in Dropbox, certainly at least the order they're in my binder, but I think that's the Dropbox order too, I tried to check. The first few, there's several what look like new policies, so I will group together 4010, equivalents in instructional staffing and materials, 4772, and its regulation graduation ceremonies, and 4850, animals in schools. Trustees, questions, comments, or other on those first 3?
4850, the dissection objection, just curious what the process is for that?
it's outlined in the regulation.
from my experience as a parent, not as a trustee, that generally they have notice about when there's a dissection, and those who don't want to participate do not have to participate.
I saw another school board that actually in the regulation has the actual form you would use if you wanted to opt out.
Okay.
So you could do that, because we don't have a regulation, right?
We don't have a regulation, but we also, in this one, we need to take out the optional text.
Well, that was gonna be my comment. Could we take out the optional text?
Yep.
Great.
So there is a form that when you know what's coming up, you fill out the form, and then we,
Okay, there's a form, it's filled out.
Yep.
It's reviewed by the principal or the teacher?
I can find out for you for the next
Okay.
time.
Great, thanks.
Right.
Anything else in those
No,
first
well,
three?
Not likely the principal.
Okay. I'm going to take next 5150, which is school admissions. Are there any questions on that? Let's do the balance now of the 4,000 series. Those appear next. It is 4452 tutoring and 4730 homework policy.
I have a question about tutoring.
Okay.
As it relates to coaches. Does that include, so this is a coach who's employed by us. What about a trainer who provides a service? Are they, and we contract our athletic trainers, are they prevented from, or is there a policy, or is maybe it's not even any sort of a conflict at all, where a student would seek out that trainer services outside of the school?
You know, it's an interesting point. You could you could include that as well.
So what is the conflict with that?
I'm not even,
I'm just wondering what the conflict is with a trainer. I mean, I understand with coaches because they're making selections concerning who makes a team and, you know, who gets playing time, who doesn't. But a trainer doesn't. I don't see where there's a potential for conflict.
well,
there.
if, I'm just gonna say, if a student utilized this trainer outside of the school day and he or she, his family, pays the trainer outside of the school day, is there a propensity that perhaps that trainer would provide a certain level of service to that particular student when he or she is on campus?
Does it change?
Does it change
The
that
dynamic.
dynamic?
Or,
I'm just throwing it out there.
And I really don't know. Or
As I read it.
likewise, anyone that we're paying to come into the schools to provide a service, not just athletic
Not just a
trainers, but,
trainer.
you know, should not be here to solicit business from our
Absolutely
students,
I mean,
right?
I think we had a conversation
Implicitly or
about
explicitly.
camps,
Mhm.
sports camps, and coaches who may run a sports camp, and also coach here in terms of.
You could be an occupational therapist, right, that comes in on a,
That's exactly right. And you can't provide like we wouldn't allow an English teacher to tutor on site either.
Right, yeah.
Right? So it's the same principle. I don't think there's a downside to including it. It just makes it, I think it makes it more clear that if our trainers can't provide training to students who are in the program, private services. Because we're paying, the district is paying for those services.
While they're here.
Right.
you. Joanna's agreeing, I can't quite hear Joanna.
She's agreeing.
I'm like, you're probably very clear, I just couldn't hear.
So is that something the board wants to include?
I think that makes sense there. I think Jack may have something he wants to be consulted on.
Just want you to consider one of the issues you're gonna have is the perception issue, where the trainer may appear to be devoting time to the player whose payroll he's on away from school.
Right.
So it is similar to a coach. So I think the way to avoid it is to include
I'm okay with including it.
Are there other analogous situations that ought to be included? Okay,
So coaches and/or trainers.
okay.
Okay. And so now, if you are a basketball coach, regardless of the level, you may not provide private coaching to an athlete within your sport that you coach, JV, modified, varsity.
I think it's appropriate,
Because you're going to encounter them one
Okay.
day.
because it does happen within the sport, that
Right.
one coach will refer to the other coach.
Yep. And then in the second part of that, of just moving backwards into for the academic tutoring, Teachers may not tutor or provide professional services to students in their class or on their assigned caseload. That was the modification.
So, let me ask, I know we do this, I'm just not, I want to go back to that on the tutoring. For the music program, we don't allow music teachers to give private lessons to their students. Are we but it's not explicitly stated?
Those are students that would be on their assigned caseload.
Because
On
they're,
their assigned
because they are
caseload?
all
Oh,
staff
okay.
members.
They're on their side case,
And
okay.
they're on their assigned
Okay.
caseload, okay.
Are we talking about homework yet?
Yes, we are.
We're
That's
done
in the
with the
group.
other?
If we're
Okay.
done with tutoring, sure.
All right, so moving on to homework.
We're talking
I'm-
about homework.
Are you done with athletics? Okay. Okay, on homework, I'm just curious, we can't even coordinate at the high school on what days people are being given exams, how you're going to coordinate homework at 60 minutes when you have people from different departments giving homework. Seems to me that's a pretty impossible task. Just saying.
We'll work it out.
I don't even know if that's feasible at the high school level to limit
I-
homework
I-
to 60 minutes. I don't think you can do it.
I agree. I mean, teaching in a high school, I don't see how that's possible. And I think there are other things that can be done there, like having exam days.
Right.
That would take a lot of pressure off students. And I think that moving in that direction at the high school. When I look at the times for, when the students enrolled in AP and IB courses, 20 minutes per course, it's just not doable. I don't know, when those numbers were arrived at, if there were teachers of AP or IB courses who were involved in that, but I just 100 minutes, which is a lot for homework for a high school student, but it's often significantly more than that, and that's the expectation of a lot of students is who enroll in those courses, that they're going to have significantly more than an hour and a half, hour and 40 minutes of homework in a night.
Just writing up a lab, right? Or, I think the problem is, as Tim said, the coordination of timing. It's that no one adheres to the calendars or to coordinating that when they have exams. So you'll end up with students having 3 exams in one day. That's really the problem. It comes in the study time, and the IB and the AP courses are heavy, but they're a college level course with college level work, and the way to really not have your child overwhelmed by the work is to select your courses carefully. Would be my response to that. I don't know how you're going to do 60 minutes, even with excluding the AP and the IB for high school level. This doesn't seem feasible for me.
What was the policy committee's discussion?
The policy, I don't want to speak for the committee, but the policy committee, I wouldn't have brought it forward without the policy committee's endorsement.
It's different when you're at an elementary school level where you have one teacher, right? And the teacher gives the homework. So they control the amount of homework a student has. It's very different when you get to a middle school and high school level where students are taking a variety of classes, and there are students who elect to skip their lunch to take extra classes.
No, I get all that. I'm just sort of like, this recommendation clearly came from somewhere. Can someone speak to?
It came from
The homework committee.
Yeah, but
At our meeting, it wasn't ready for final, there was something about that wasn't ready for us to
We made changes to it.
Right, we had tabled it, and this is the new one. But I'm like, yeah, and we did.
We did, and they came to a meeting, I don't know, maybe you weren't here. We had a whole discussion with the homework policy committee.
Right.
And this was, I think we raised this issue, I think Tim raised this issue. Right?
I was
that
like, so I'm
time.
saying that committee, like, this recommendation came from some group of people, which includes educators, or no?
Yes. This came,
So,
This-
what's the other side of this argument?
What I'm recalling is that there were issues with the times and the assigning of specific, caps. I mean, I know there's in the policy as it's written now. At one point it says cap, and then it does say guidelines. And I know we had discussed that that the word guideline should be used, but the word cap is in there in one section as well. But it's I know it's somewhere in there. But
That was my question, Tim, because it says at one point, maximum amounts of time per night, and then like one or two sentences later, it says, teachers have discretion. I wasn't sure how that correlates. Is it a max, or is it teacher discretion? And then, of course, the point Tim brings up is, and is it discretion of 4 or 5 individual teachers don't necessarily, who unlikely coordinate.
so when we met in the policy committee, we had, I don't think I have the original one here, but if you look at the second bullet where it says the following times, right, the policy committee wanted to acknowledge and make accommodations for some students who just work at different paces, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so there is we added the sentence that the board recognizes that students work at various paces. And so what might take one student 10 minutes might take another student an hour. And so the teacher needs to be paying attention to that and working closely with the parent to try to adhere to these guidelines. Right, but ultimately the teachers have discretion to
Certainly, there's no homework assignment that every student is going to accomplish in 27 minutes, of course. Every student's going to have different approaches.
Correct.
Different focus, different flexibility, et cetera.
And so if the word maximum is troublesome, we could take the word maximum out. And that changes the connotation of the paragraph.
I just think you're not gonna, you can't even get the teachers at the high school to coordinate test dates, never mind homework assignments. And the classes vary, right? Your students are not identical. So how do you achieve 60 minutes of homework when you may have Susie, Joe, and John in one class and Susie, Mike, and Patty in another, right? It's really, at the high school, it's really your course selection that determines the homework.
I think the research might be different too on the efficacy of daily homework in some subjects versus others, right?
That's
Yeah,
absolutely
math, you read and practice your math every day, but
I wasn't clear whether the reading is part of that or not.
we're kind of, it says,
It says furthermore, the
may
times
be.
may include time for reading,
yeah,
May.
it says May.
meaning the times may include them,
The 10 minutes.
but reading cannot be assigned in addition to these.
Reading wouldn't be signed in addition to.
Would not be assigned in addition to. So that would be 30 minutes total, may include reading. Okay.
I think, by and large, it would be very nice to have this policy in place. But the homework piece seems troubling to a lot of people. We could pass it and be silent on high school with the idea that we could come back and modify it
So
when
tonight
we
is,
have some better, something people feel better about.
Right, this is the first reading. And so the next time you would get the policy would be the end of August. And I would suggest that we should have a homework policy going into the school year. So I would need to know, what, because there is ample time for us to make changes. If you want to give us some changes, we can incorporate the changes and bring back a revised policy, but I need to
But
know.
that seems to be the problem. I don't even know that you want this board right now to decide what the high school piece of it should be. The rest of it they can live with.
I even think it's troubling at the middle school level, because once you get past 6th grade, they're not on teams anymore. They don't travel together necessarily.
I thought we had, are you sure?
The
thought we
6th
still
grade
had
has teams, right?
Yeah,
I
they
think
have
they
teams.
still
do.
They
They
still
have
have teams,
teams.
yeah.
They still have teams?
There are teams through.
Yeah.
But
there are
the,
teams through.
you know, with just those time guidelines, there's a big difference between 3rd and 5th grade. I mean, there's a huge difference in that's grouped together as well, you know, for 30 minutes, which might seem a lot for 3rd grade to me, actually. It doesn't seem like a lot for 5th grade necessarily.
Especially if it includes reading.
Right.
So I think that if I was going to summarize kind of where we are, on the high school level, I think it's been raised that whatever we write in this policy is going to be very hard to enforce, especially at the AP and IB levels. And then I think at the lower levels, at least for me, and what Tim is saying also, that maybe we're not totally in line with the actual numbers. That's just for me.
It used to be, like, in the elementary school, it was like 10 minutes per grade, right? And
Well,
every year you went up 10 minutes, but it seems like we're at 3rd grade and then we're bouncing off and then going to middle school. And there's a difference too between 6th grade and 8th grade, because 8th grade you're taking 2 high school level courses. You're taking algebra and you're taking biology. I just, you know, I don't know that the numbers are realistic.
And yet, we had a committee spend the whole year on it and make an extensive presentation, and I don't want to just say.
I don't want to
we're-
disregard
you know,
them
We're gonna
then,
make up some other number.
but
you know?
I think we need to look at the numbers, especially if you're including reading in that. I didn't understand that we were including reading in it.
I think Peter's suggestion to remove the word maximum is definitely helpful, where it appears, I mean, it appears a couple times, and I think that
If you did
helps, and
that-
more emphasis. These are just kind of general guidelines, but it's up to the teacher ultimately.
Right. I think if you remove the maximum,
And also,
Okay.
where it says in the bullet point, where it says the amount of homework should gradually increase from K to 12 and receive a time cap, I would take out and receive a time cap.
Where are you looking?
It's the solid bullet point.
Oh, I see.
And I think, I don't want us to think that we'll do a policy and it resolves the issue at the high school.
I
I think the
agree.
issue at the high school is not going to be addressed by this policy. I just don't want to leave that piece untouched.
Okay, so we'll go through the policy. We'll take out the maximums. I found a typo here. It should be appropriate for them. So I will fix that.
You said take out the word cap, take out maximum.
I
take
took
cap.
out, I just am putting a period at increase from K through 12
Mhm.
in that first bullet. Is there anything else that you want me to work through?
Could we put in some language at the high school level
I'm
about
listening.
coordinating?
at least
Something.
something we,
Because
teachers are encouraged.
I mean,
to
I've
coordinate.
honestly, Peter, I've been hearing about the Google Calendar for 4 years, and it just doesn't exist. It's just a figment of everyone's imagination at every meeting.
All right, so if we put in here, teachers are encouraged to follow these time guidelines and coordinate.
Well,
with-
coordinate
and
their
coordinate with
assignments,
one another.
especially at the, at the middle school and high school level, even the middle school level, though I think they function better as teams at the middle school level. I think they plan together and they speak more to one another. They really function in silos at the high school.
And we're moving them around at the high school to be more departmentalized, which is going to, I think, increase the silo-ness rather than thinking about where ninth graders are going to be during the day and with whom.
Listen, ninth grade, the jump from 5th to 6th was shocking. The jump from 8th to 9th was also shocking. The amount of time on, if your child took, the amount of time, I can't speak for everyone's child, but when my kid took pre-AP World, that was unbelievably time consuming. He probably spent more than 60 minutes a night just on pre-AP World in ninth grade.
Sorry, that jump from 5th to 6th is going to be made more difficult if we're treating 3rd graders the same as 5th graders.
That's what I'm saying. That was my point, Dave.
Yeah.
I didn't articulate it
I
clearly,
don't
but if
know.
you're
I think
doing
that's
30
true.
minutes,
Yeah.
in the 5th grade, including your reading, when you get to 6th grade, yeah, it's
Yep.
like endurance. You know, you don't run a mile right away.
I was like, so let them ease into it in 6th grade. I don't need to like oppress the 5th graders just so that they're like, you know.
No, but
easy
I
down in
don't
time
think
for
30
6th grade.
30 minutes in 5th grade, which is including your reading time. They should be, in 5th grade, they should be reading 30 minutes a day.
I'm good with the
Honestly.
reading. But yeah, I don't think we're trying to write our own policy this evening.
No, we're not trying to write our own policy. I'm just saying the time frames may be problematic. And maybe we can be less stringent on the time frames.
Right, and so we've talked about a bunch of specific ways to move
Right.
the policy in that direction. Encourage them to coordinate. That's what we've got.
Sarah, one other issue on
Yes,
homework.
ma'am? Yes.
And the second paragraph, I'm not so sure it's appropriate for us to have religious in there.
I called Fraser Feldman on that today.
I had a note on that too.
After your question, and it's okay to have it. It just acknowledges that students have religious obligations outside of school, and that we can be mindful of them. Right, Jack and I talked this afternoon.
It's not preferring, it's not encouraging, it doesn't address any particular religion, it's just an acknowledgement that those are among the items that people spend their time in. I don't see it as a church-state interference.
But we have kids that celebrate holidays with their families that everyone in the district is not celebrating, and you want teachers to be.
Yeah, I know in Roslyn Middle School, on their actual calendar, on the school calendar, they have
Days of
w-
religious observance.
days of religious observance, and tests are prohibited, and
Right.
major
And they define
assignments
that, they define
are
that
prohibited on those
broadly,
days.
right.
And that's
They're
written
trying to
right onto the
cover-
calendar.
Right, they're trying to cover everything.
We had this whole discussion years ago about, we had someone who used to write to us all the time and came to the meetings about why we don't have Christmas on the calendar, right? And we made a determination as a district that we were not going to put religious holidays on there, because now you have to.
That's not what he's saying, though.
I know what he's saying, days of but you're once you start down that road, you're going to have the people calling you, why don't you have the Christmas tree on December 25th on the calendar?
I think it's like a testing schedule, and they don't name what the day is even. It's just,
Yeah, it just says
these are,
religious
these
observance.
are just
Right, it
days
doesn't
in which
it
you
doesn't
can't test.
identify the actual.
But it doesn't say it's Christmas.
I think you're getting down a slippery slope. That's all I'm saying, and I think you could do that internally and not do it on the calendar, because I don't know
I thought
that
it
you
was
can
internal.
cover.
It's not on the community calendar, it's like on the,
Just in terms of what Joanna said with this point, I interpret it the same way, which is they're saying that although homework has its place, we as a district value free time for a full development of a student, and then we list religion as one of the things that we as a district are saying is important as part of a student's rich life, when many students who don't have religion don't necessarily feel that. I'm just saying it might not be necessary to have it in there, but I understand what you're saying.
But the children who don't have religion may also not have athletics, or the children who do have religion may.
We're suggesting that,
Preferring anything.
we're suggesting that that is a meaningful experience. I don't know that that's my job.
But I don't think that is what you're suggesting. I think what you're doing is you're acknowledging that among things children do when they're not doing homework is these other things, these extracurricular activities.
Okay.
So I don't have a legal objection if you're listing religion. If you're uncomfortable, then don't. It's your policy.
I think you need it, but to Joanna's point, I think if you take out the adjectives, if you don't say a rich array, if you don't say meaningful, if you just say to develop extracurricular interest and engage in family, religious,
And you're
community,
not making a
creative.
judgment about
Right,
the, yeah.
take out the adjectives. Take out a rich array, take out meaningful, and then we can still acknowledge the reasons without imparting value.
Safeguard time for students to develop an
Extracurricular
array of
interest.
extracurricular interests
Yeah.
and engage in family, religious, community,
Yeah.
creative.
And then that fixes hers
Right.
and we get to keep it.
I just think the slight value judgment that's placed on there is unnecessary.
I see what you're saying. Goodbye adjectives.
Gone.
Got that, Gio Rizzo?
Got it.
Okay.
No, it's not. We don't want to put it off 4, though. Right now,
No,
we're
I
there.
would really like the policies and I would like the policies to come in smaller chunks, though. Okay, we are now, what's left is the balance of the 5,000s. There are like 8 of them, if I don't count the regulations separately. I'll divide them in half. So we're now gonna do 5100, which is student attendance. 5151R, which is the homeless children regulation. 5220 and its regulation, which is school-sponsored student expression, and 5280 interscholastic athletics. I am happy to start with some comments on student attendance, if that's okay with everyone. 5100? The excused absences, the first 2 bullets I found confusing. It's excused if it's an illness of the student 3 to 4 days or less, and then it says an extended illness can require a doctor's note, but then that says 3 to 5 days.
Those
Should that not be
I'm sa-
more than 4 days, or
Those,
this is just confusing?
The numbers are supposed to come out, right? So illness of the student, you don't need the 3 to 4 days.
It's like you're sick, it's excused. We're supposed to take
Right.
out the
If you
3 to
have
4
an
days?
extended illness for more than 3, it should be more than 3 days.
Okay,
You need a doctor's note.
illness, more than 3 days. Yeah, all right. Are college visits unlimited? I hear other schools say like you can have 3 or something.
The policy committee did not discuss that.
Would you like them to be unlimited?
I haven't thought about it, but I would say what the policy committee did talk about was that if you go to if you have a orthodontist appointment, right, you don't need to document that, right? You go to the orthodontist and you come back to school and you sign in, and that's excused, right? If you go on a college visit, you have to figure out how to.
Wait, but it's not excused.
It is a college visit is excused.
No, you were saying the orthodontic thing. I'm like, that's not. Only emergency dental appointments.
They're
Non-emergency medical and dental appointments are not excused.
okay. So the question of whether or not you want to limit the number of college visits is really entirely up to the board.
I think you might get pushback from the community if we limited it.
Roslyn says you can have 3 days for college limits. Are we okay if someone visits for like a month? Is there no in between?
don't have an issue with people visiting colleges. I think they should be excused, regardless of how many college visits one chooses to take.
Okay.
You know, how does this work? I mean, I try to do mine on
We haven't done
weekends
it, yeah.
and
Holiday weeks.
holiday weeks breaks, but because the kids were in advanced classes and they just couldn't go wandering off to college visits. I would think if there were an issue with extended absences because of college visits, a teacher would reach out to a parent
Yes.
if it became problematic, right, academically for them. And that's really the issue, right?
I think most parents are mindful of the
I
time.
would think so, but
Right.
And they're still responsible for the work. They're not absent. So if they go to a school and they're not in school on a Friday, they're still responsible for the work that they miss.
Exactly. That's
They
my
just
point.
don't get zeros for missing it because it's an unexcused absence.
Right. So I
Right.
think it sort of takes care of itself.
I think
It
so
was
too.
my point.
Yep, I think so too.
Under unexcused, the motor vehicle appointments, I thought was a little confusing. It says like it's unexcused excluding road tests. So road tests are excused?
Where do, this is the board's existing policy, so
You
So I'm
can't-
like,
you
yeah,
can't
I
get them on
agree.
a
I'm just sort of
Saturday.
like, can we, but I just want to move it
Right.
up to the excused list. I don't know why
You
we're
absolutely
burying
should
it.
move it up.
Yes.
Why is it buried under unexcused?
I had no idea it was unexcused that both my kids were out.
Yeah, no. So if like a road test with documentation are excused, let's just
So we'll
put it
just
on the
bring it
list.
up.
And other than that, I just want to say, thank God we pointed out that shopping is an unexcused absence. Or that's just like a rampant problem. and-
Could we move that up? I mean, if there's a sale at Bloomies, I don't know.
Unlimited? Or like you can have 3 days free shopping?
Nordstrom's only has sales twice a year.
Oh, so then two is fine. The shopping, I think, detracts a little from the seriousness of this policy. Does anyone else have things they wish to discuss besides shopping? And I'm open to anything on 5100, since we're discussing it. We'll get to that, but I might have one more thing to say about 5100 then. The sanctions for unexcused absences, I don't understand. The last page of 5100, if a second cut means the loss of 5 free periods, what free periods and how do you lose them? What does that mean?
Can I go back to one thing? Sorry, with the absences,
Yeah.
can we just say the following, rather than our unexcused, the unexcused absence include the following, but are not limited to those? Because by clearly identifying what unexcused absences are, there are many other reasons why somebody might be absent. So
Yes.
just some line there that it's not limited to those reasons.
Right. Yes. All other absences are unexcused. The following serve as examples.
Yeah,
Shopping.
Right, the following are examples of unexcused absences. There you go.
That's a good point. So yes, so apparently if we cut classes, the first cut we get detention, on the second cut we lose 5 free periods.
I don't even know who has
I
5
was
free
like, they don't
periods.
have free periods, and what does it mean to lose them? What happens? What is that?
That's lunch, if you even have
And
lunch.
so you don't
not-
get to
we're
eat?
not allowed to
What does
take-
this mean?
I know you're not allowed to take lunch away, but my point is at the high school that some kids have free periods, but many do not. It's their lunch.
Right, I just don't know what loss of 5
And some
free
of them
periods
don't even have lunch. Which is ridiculous, but.
Let's say they do have a free period, what does it mean to lose it?
They would have like in-school detention perhaps.
Okay. And if you cut a bunch of classes, we want them to eventually have out-of-school suspension so they can miss even more school also. Seems a little ironic.
We do not, but it is the most serious on the continuum of discipline as prescribed by the commissioner.
You could do more in school, then at least you could keep an eye on them and make sure they didn't cut.
You could.
So anyway, these seem, it seems hard to do it because the free period thing is odd and the ultimate consequence, right? Does anyone else have any, is this just me? No, we're good with it.
I just think this policy predates a time when
Mhm.
this is how students operated.
Like, is it, because, by the way, apparently we are supposed to, the board is supposed to annually review building level student attendance records. So I'm going to ask that we
You will get them.
review those. Because, right, do you suspect this is just not an issue?
We did actually review it at one, for the high school at one point.
I feel like we did once.
We
yeah.
did because we raised the issue of students cutting. We absolutely looked at it, at least in the past 6 years, once.
Yeah.
But not everywhere, just at the
But
high
not-
school.
Chris, can you make a note? We'll get that.
Dave, you want to go to 5220, did you say?
Oh my God.
You want to go all the way to 52? 5280. Go ahead, yeah.
Do we wanna-
52, oh, sorry,
Go
Peter.
ahead.
No, Peter, what's up?
No, I was going to say, should we take them in order?
Does anyone have anything on
before we get
5151R? No. 5220 and its regulation. All right, 5280 it is, interscholastic athletics.
So there were two things in there. Number one is the athletic placement policy. I know we had discussed play-ups, and that seems to still be a topic of conversation. 7th and 8th graders moving up to varsity. That regulation you had sent was interesting, but really heavy on student ability as a determinant, and really almost nothing about maturity, social emotional health, context, body. So I'm not sure, without that being something that we look at individually, this policy's ready for cooking.
We could put the policy here and do that as a separate policy, and it could go to the athletic policy committee first.
That was what we discussed at the last meeting. Mary's
Right.
right, was we talked about having them take a look at it, so we could put a reference in that paragraph saying the athletic placement policy is a separate regulation and have that be
There's,
determined.
so I had sent home the district one-page
Yes.
sheet.
Yep.
That might be a good document for the athletic review policy.
Committee to start.
Yep, to look at.
Yep.
And then build, beefing that up a bit.
Yes. And later on in that 5280, it talked about, hold on, it's a long one. Parents and students need to make coaches aware when there's an injury or an issue, but nothing about a coach making sure that parents are aware of an issue that occurs.
It's in the concussion protocol.
Well, but that's only one type of
It
injury.
could be another kind of,
Orthopedic?
Can you point me to what paragraph, just so I can figure out how to resolve it?
It is it's on the first paragraph that isn't crossed out. Although the district will take
I see it.
reasonable, and then the last sentence is parents and their students are expected to report injuries
Yes.
so that student health can be protected.
It might behoove us to put an additional paragraph, sentence in there that coaches need to alert parents when there's been an injury.
PE teachers too? We shouldn't have to.
haven't we just
Right.
learned we have to put that in a policy?
Pardon me?
I thought that's what we just learned, that we have to put that
I
in the
thought,
policy.
I think, this is NISBA policy. I'm just saying that theoretically, it could occur where a coach might
But
not
it-
know that that's something they have to do.
It wouldn't just be a coach, right? It could happen in the classroom, it could happen in the PE class, it could happen anywhere. And if a student is injured, I mean, I agree with Joanna, the teacher should know.
If we have to tell a coach, they have to call the parent if there's an injury. We got a lot more problems than we want. I mean, that's ridiculous.
And yet,
And yet,
And yet,
so I'm just saying it would be helpful to us if we just, in addition to all the other commonsensical reasons for that to be the case, we also could point to this and say, also, it's in our policy.
Can we, Could you, to conclude that paragraph, you could say, all district employees must use their discretion when contacting parents. Right, because if a student, because here's the thing, right, so. You can, go ahead.
Does a coach sign at the beginning of the season?
A coach's code of conduct?
I don't know.
What their responsibilities are. I mean, that has to be communicated to coach. It has to be. I'm not.
I don't know.
Just asking a question.
I don't want to say yes, I don't want to say no. I hope so, but I will find out.
You're saying it could be covered elsewhere,
I would hope it's
but you could still have it.
good.
A sizable number of the policies that are covered in this gigantic manual are codifications of common sense in many ways.
From NISBA, this.
From NISBA, where we got
Well,
the alcohol and vaping that, you know,
Right.
these things are bad for
And
kids'
we have
health.
policies that just say the law says this, so you have to do it.
Yes.
It's not like you need a policy, it's the law,
The
but
law.
we write it down.
In this instance, there's almost no downside to putting language like that in, although I certainly agree that common sense would dictate that. There's really no downside because the coach trains with the team, he owns the team, he's responsible for it.
So can we put a sentence that says all district employees must use their discretion when contacting parents about student injuries?
Not use their discretion.
No.
All district employees must contact parents when a student is injured.
Parents should be contacted when a student is
So if a
injured.
student falls, and how do you define injured?
In the case of the scholastic activities, if the kid cannot continue to perform, play, practice, that would necessitate a phone call.
Always
Kids get knocked on the ground, they get hurt a little bit, they bounce up. But if
I mean, we use the
it's
term,
unable to participate,
I'm like, we use the term injury throughout the policy. Like, if we have to have a definition of injury, we can add one, but we're using the word. I think you can use it in the other direction.
What do you want it to say?
Parents should be notified when a student is injured during,
Yeah, I think
Interscholastic
different than a
sport.
kid slipping in the hallway, kids are really under the protection in loco of the parents, right? When they're at these events, the school as a whole is, but that coach is responsible for a kid's welfare. And when there's an injury to that kid, it's the responsibility of that coach to alert the parent. That's all I'm saying.
The only question is, what do you mean when you say injury? I mean, that's really the only question, and I don't have a simple definition for you, but I think it's probably one worth considering, just because injured is so generic.
whether you add the sentence or not, you gotta add the definition then. Parents and students are expected to report injuries. What injuries are
Or
they? It cuts
suspected.
both ways.
Or suspected?
I think injury is sufficiently definitive that it's not a little cut with a Band-Aid. Yeah.
I wouldn't struggle to define it right now, but I think you should try and reach for a definition within this standard. Because here's my only focus on this, if you're a coach and you're in a contact sport, kids get some measure of hurt all the time. In fact, on almost every play.
Yes.
That doesn't mean they're injured. So I think you need to kind of struggle, and Joanna, you might be able to help with this at some point. I don't know that this is the forum for that, your policy committee is probably the forum for that. But I think you want something that because otherwise a coach has no guidelines, and then he or she is always gonna be second guessed whether the skin knee was the injury she should have called the coach, the parent about. Or when the kid fell and jammed a finger, that should have been something. And I don't know how you enforce a policy without giving clear guidance to the people who are expected to abide by it. That's all I'm saying.
I agree, but there's a sentence, as Sarah referenced, that says, "Coaches and other appropriate staff will receive guidance and training regarding recognition of injury and removal of the student athlete from play in the event of injury." So we're already there.
Okay, no, I don't
Yeah.
disagree.
Yeah, so-
College should have some guidance about what that means.
I agree. I think so. But putting the sentence in there about the coach alerting the parents seems like an easy fix to at least get us to that point, and then we can define injury.
But it's not just the coach, it's the PE teacher, it's really.
Why can't we just say parents should be notified when injuries are sustained by a student?
I'm fine with that as well.
When parents should be notified when injuries are sustained by a student. And we still have to deal with how to define what injured.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, it doesn't work by defining, it doesn't work if we define that as a kid cannot continue to.
You could. The only problem with that is that, when you do that, we're relying on the kid to tell us whether to keep playing.
Right.
And sometimes I'm not always sure the kids are.
Mhm.
Concussion is the obvious one
Right.
because there are symptoms you look for. But the kid falls and jams a finger and he says, "I'm fine," and keeps playing, and then it turns out the finger is broken. Or, because kids, we know players do that all the time. They play through injuries, if you will. So all I'm just saying is, you don't want to set up a standard that's impossible for a coach or a teacher to honestly follow. So I think we need to come up with a definition. And I don't have one off the top of my head, but I just think that's something a policy committee should look at. That's all.
Defining injury that reaches that threshold.
Okay.
Makes sense.
May I ask a different question on this policy? Course credit, does that mean kids that are playing a sport don't have to take phys ed?
You can have dance in lieu of phys ed.
But this says course credit permits students in grades 10 to 12 to receive, so it means you play a sport, you don't have to take phys ed. And this is new. What? But that's new, isn't it? You've been able to get out of phys ed by playing a sport before?
Well, the problem is if you're out till October, and then you have to go back to your phys ed class, and you're really not taking your excuse for that period of time that you're
Got you.
My 3-season athlete was never afforded the opportunity when asked, as we pursued it, to be excused from PE.
I thought we didn't have this policy.
We do not.
What do you mean?
This is new. This is new. I don't think it belongs there.
So, okay, so right, it is redlined. You're saying, so it's new and we don't actually want this policy?
We do not want to do this.
I was sort of excited about it. To your point, right, that if, you're gonna run for several hours
I
a
don't
day.
recommend that we do it.
I don't know how new it is.
No.
I agree. I think what you get in
So
the phys
this
ed
is just
class,
here by
there's no
accident?
guarantee that's an overlap with your sport.
There generally isn't.
So someone made a mistake. Yes. It shouldn't be there.
Apparently, we're removing course credit.
All right.
Joanna, did you have a different question?
I just wanted to, the first sentence, I discussed athletics for boys and girls, I think physics and those should be unnecessary.
Yeah.
And I'd like to change the word parity to equity.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And under, the student eligibility for participation, I would delete the word mild traumatic injury. Should take the word mild.
Okay.
Peter, you said there was being developed protocol for the concussion management. So when
over the summer.
over the summer?
Anything else on 5280? Okay.
Sarah, are we not,
I'm sorry, what?
the athletic placement, are we having a discussion at another time?
I thought they said they were doing it in the committee, the athletic advisory committee. Yeah?
You're gonna
Okay.
start out with a nice meaty topic.
Yeah. It's good to have something to talk about. You're gonna love it. Okay, I'm moving on to,
The-
sorry?
I think the section, I've lost it, on the student speech, student expression,
Oh, yeah.
the 5220.
Uh-huh.
Wait, hold on, I lost it here. Just one section, at one point, I think it's the second page in the red,
Uh-huh.
right, where it's handwritten in 5220 at the top. You see that?
Yeah.
It says, in addition, the school-sponsored activities listed above are not considered public forums. There are no activities listed above. So,
I actually had marked that too, that I was not clear what we were,
so,
doing there.
but lower down, if you go down a page or so, it's on another page, but it's later. So it mentions the yearbook, literary magazine,
That's in the regulation.
theater productions, so that's in the, where it's black type. The 5220R, it mentions all those activities, so it's out of order a little bit. And that just needs to be adjusted.
But I think that if you look at it, what's on the first page, 5220, it does say, it gives the school newspaper as an example.
But it doesn't list.
Oh, it doesn't list,
It doesn't
okay.
list activities, but those other activities are, clearly identified later.
so you think if you just drop
That
that
statement.
paragraph to come after the due process clause, you'll be fine? It makes more sense in terms of the flow of what would happen also.
Well, I'm just,
Do you see what he's saying?
yeah, doing this on a
I see that
computer
where he
screen
is.
very
I don't know where-
difficult.
This should appear
Not.
right there, and will be much better.
Okay. Got it. Thank you.
Anytime, least I could do. Maybe you want to give us fewer policies at a time.
Excuse me?
Nothing. So maybe we should have fewer policies at a time. We're dying. Okay, 5420 and 5420R, this is student health services. Which has some, as you can see, important and significant changes. I have a question on 5420R, the regulation. So this indicates that we'll now stock extra EpiPens and albuterol. And I think that is new, right? That's a
Albuterol
change.
is a no. That's a,
What do you mean it's a no?
we are not going to stock albuterol.
Okay, it's all over here that we're
Yep.
stocking
No,
albuterol.
we caught that. So we spoke to the nurses. It's in the regulation? Okay.
Okay. Albuterol is going from the regulation. EpiPens is staying in?
EpiPens, we carry EpiPens.
You do think we have
We have
extra?
EpiPens, yes.
Extras and not the kids?
Yes, we do.
Okay. So good, I'm glad we caught the albuterol thing.
Thank you. We had caught it before the meeting and then, yeah.
I'm surprised we have to have written permission to carry sunscreen with us, but
You can't put bacitracin on a kid anymore. Haven't been able to for years.
This is sunscreen. Your kid can't take sunscreen with them to high school if they're going, without written permission. Annually. Do we have to have that? There's no way we're enforcing that.
It's a liability.
Okay. Maybe we gotta enforce it then. Anything else? What else on 5420?
Sunscreen.
It literally says.
Go down to the athletic fields. Kids are putting sunscreen on out of their backpacks. One would hope, but I know that they do.
You would in fact want that, right?
Yes.
Like the policy dissuades the use of sunscreen.
The sunscreen police.
I really think we should probably take a look at that. I really,
Do you want us to, Olivia, can you please review this with nicer, the sunscreen piece?
Yeah.
My kids would look like lobsters.
I just.
Olivia? So,
Parents need to
the
provide the
requirement to provide the district
Annually.
with a note on sunscreen, can you just check in with nicer on that?
Like, what are you talking about?
Our insurance company.
No, I know what you're talking about. She's just like, it's just,
Because I think you are allowed to have a non-patient specific prescription. The only thing is, it has to be for kids who already have a delivery system.
Yep.
I mean, that's how I read it.
the
The albuterol.
albuterol. Yes, that is what he says, but he says.
We don't
nurses
stock it.
don't wanna
We
do
don't
it.
stock it.
Next up, 5440 in its regulation, drugs, alcohol, tobacco, and vaping used by students. Comments?
So it says, a staff member observing students using tobacco or vaping, et cetera. It says appropriate disciplinary action, which is intentionally vague, and that's the way it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be up to the building leader to have some discretion there?
Yes.
Great, I just wanted to confirm that. Are we on the regulation, 5440R?
If you like.
Basically, the way I interpret that is, if a student is caught with possession, they are calling the police. If a student is caught using, they may call the police. Is that the way we do it?
Can you show me where you're looking, please?
Hold on. Use it at home and come to school.
They must be trying to distinguish between distribution.
Can you
and
tell me where you're
possession.
looking?
Yeah, I'm looking here.
I'm
Hold
sorry.
on a second. No, that's all right. Drug and alcohol, okay, so the top of page 5440R, the second page of it, it says drug and alcohol possession.
Yep.
And then the fourth bullet point, it says the principal will inform Nassau County Police 3rd Precinct. The one below it, which is usage,
Mm-hmm.
it's
Bullet point number 4 says may.
may. So in other words, a kid, I'm dating myself, but kid drops acid and then goes to school. Sorry, this can happen. Kid doesn't have it on him, but the kid is acting like he's out of it at school. That's a situation where there's usage and not
Mm-hmm.
possession. That's the way we do it.
Maybe because the first bullet says observed or suspected, so hence it has, you don't know?
Is that the way we do it? I
That's
can
my
confirm
question.
that for sure.
In other words, I don't have a problem with that policy. Possession, you gotta call the police. Suspicion, it could be a judgment call, but I just wanna make sure that's how we're doing it.
I will tell you that we generally always make a call to the POP officers. So
Mhm.
even when we have a question about it, and we're working through it, so if we suspected it, we might call them, it's likely that we would call them for direction.
Okay. Okay.
More on 5440?
Peter, could I just ask one question? You have vaping devices. I'm not sure I know what that means, but I do know that sometimes with equipment, you might want to add
Paraphernalia would, wouldn't it?
Well, I don't know if that fits in the definition of vaping devices. To me, a vaping device is the delivery system.
But paraphernalia would.
Yes, but I'm saying I would add paraphernalia because then you cover all the bases.
Dave Gordon?
We've been involved in hearings
Yeah.
where children, for example, found with rolling paper among other things. Before the time I didn't refer to drug paraphernalia, and all of a sudden you're in an argument over whether that's prohibited. So to me, I think that's one way of addressing it.
I don't want to call the police about rolling paper necessarily. I don't know. I'm like, the paraphernalia, I'm not sure is so clear either.
You don't have to roll
They may.
make the distinction that it's
Oh, you're saying may for both?
punishable offense.
I'm saying if you had paraphernalia, it's probably not as easy as just inserting the word.
Well, what do you mean?
If you just add the word paraphernalia, then you're using all the same consequences for finding rolling papers on someone as you are finding actual drugs. Do you want your policy to say that?
It's, what we're saying here is the board is committed to the prevention of tobacco, vaping devices / paraphernalia, alcohol and other illegal substances.
I
Substance
don't,
use.
yeah, that's why I'm saying that sounds quite
Well, if
awkward,
you- what if
really
you find,
committed to,
A smoking paraphernalia,
you know. What if I'm
crack
saying,
pipe.
what if you find a
I
crack
mean, I'm gonna
pipe
get extreme. Even certain hash pipe, certain
that they
devices
picked
to
up off the
smoke.
ground not
vaporizer?
knowing what it was?
Old-timey devices to smoke weed. I mean, it's the whole, that's paraphernalia.
I think you can do it, but I don't know that you can do it right here, right this minute. I think you might want to,
It's one word.
you know, table it and write it carefully if we want it to include that.
There are, yeah.
So your objection is that using the word paraphernalia might refer to a package of rolling paper versus a pipe.
It can refer to a lot of things, and so I think you can't just, at 11 o'clock at night, just insert the word without going back through the policy and considering all those ramifications. It could be an excellent idea, but we shouldn't do it on the spot.
It's important to us. Let's give good time to it.
Yes.
And thought.
Because if we do it in their little slipshod,
Mhm.
some kid not too far from now could be suffering, or could be receiving consequences of something we didn't necessarily think all the way
That
through.
we didn't intend. I think it's 11 o'clock, and it's after.
Right, and Dave, I was just gonna go back to your thing, the difference between possessing a drug and a student getting high or whatever at home and then coming to school is, it's not a criminal offense if they're intoxicated on school, there's nothing to possess. You may have to call the police if there's actually drugs on school because they're in criminal possession or something.
Well, the policy says
So we left that with the may because of the suspected.
Suspicion.
So
that
that's
they
fine.
may, they may.
Yeah.
They may. Makes
Okay.
sense if you think about it.
So we don't forget, I'm gonna move to table 5440. So that
Second.
we can look at, thank you, the paraphernalia. All in favor?
Policy and the regulation.
Yes. Oh.
That's a good
Well,
point.
but we're kinda,
So we could bring it back, and if you are okay with the language, as it comes back to you, you can approve it,
yeah,
you can adopt it as modified.
okay.
Okay, let us have a,
Okay, fine.
we'll take a shot at it.
Good point, thank you, Betty. On to 5460, child abuse, maltreatment, or neglect in a domestic setting, and the regulation. Anyone? All right, and the final policy is student privacy, which is 5550, This policy struck me as not ready in a few ways. It's sort of like it addresses a couple of topics on student privacy, but it's not comprehensive. The
Okay.
topics it addresses maybe are important, but seem, the stuff on surveys, that list is not comprehensive at all. It's supposed to be anything that, could cause some even emotional harm to a student. That's supposed to be determined by, an IRB.
So do we want to table this for now and spend a little time on it?
I would like to look at a couple things when you're looking at this. There were some programs at the middle school this year where I don't think parents received sufficient notice or advice that could have been, that parents may have wanted to elect to not have their child participate. So I really think you have to look at this carefully.
So are you saying, like, here it says that parents have the right to inspect the curriculum? Do you,
There were programs that have been, like the Team Challenge program. There was another program where I don't think parents were given sufficient information. The Team Challenge, they kind of confused it with Challenge Week. They didn't understand the scope of the program. And
so
based upon-
you wanted to say something more about, like, parents should be notified of the
provide in a
content of
timely
special-
manner about
Special
so,
programs,
right,
presentations.
and there should be a brochure that goes home a week or two before. We don't just throw these on. I mean, parents get, an email at 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon. They can't even ask a question.
Some other school districts around here seem to have policies that cover more issues, including just like stuff about the Parents' Bill of Rights and all of that too. Yes,
You want to still table it and work on it?
probably.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that.
So fully table this one.
Just table it, we'll keep the existing policy in place.
Make a motion to table 5550. I can
Second.
barely say numbers anymore. All in favor? The table.
Just a note on that one, Peter, just in that list of 8, certainly the prevention needs assessment should be added to that. It's an easy one.
The what?
The PNA, the
Yeah,
prevention
the
needs assessment.
Bach Harrison, it says students,
Oh,
you
yeah.
know,
I wouldn't have, the language about like what a family consists of, I don't think anybody should take it. Something out of the 50s. Okay, we are at the end of the policies. It may be easier for us going forward to have more smaller sections of policies to review. And we talked earlier about having a way to make sure they're online and that there's better notice and transparency about which policies we're going to discuss. And I also think when we know there's a significant change in a policy, if we could highlight that for the board in some way. So some of the things that I thought we were changing, in fact, were just mistakes, like albuterol and not having to take phys ed. But should we have some major change of direction? I wouldn't mind that being pointed out to me.
Sure.
Because that might be a clue that something went awry with the documents. Thank you, trustees. Okay, it just takes me a minute to get back to the agenda.
Comments from the public.
What's that?
Comments from the public.
Thank you. If there are any comments from the public, if you would approach the podium. I don't think he's a comment from the public. I could be wrong though. Your name and town of residence, please. The floor is yours.
For anyone that may not know, O'Connor,
Thank you.
not sure if it's on, but I probably don't need
We can.
You need it for recording.
Red light.
Is that on? There we go.
there you go.
Okay.
there you go.
I appreciate sitting through this. I actually love sitting through meetings like this because I love learning and finding out what's going on. And again, I do this for a private school I do what you do for a private school in Queens. A couple of things, notes that I wrote down. One is, and it won't be in a particular order, but just take it from where it's coming from when you're talking about the policies about paraphernalia and things like that. Maybe those are things you want to consult CASA on and see what they kind of bring to the table to help you out when you have to make a decision on that. Team challenge, I can tell you as a parent of a 7th grader, I had absolutely no clue what team challenge was, other than what my son had told me it was going to be, which was sporting events. So the kids were under the impression that those were sporting events. I do think the district has a huge liability problem, possibly from parents this year, dealing with that, because there was an outside source that came in. The parents weren't instructed what it was, and it kind of crossed the line of personal issues that parents and children take care of themselves and may not want the public to know about, and it was kind of put out there in the public. And an example of that is whether a child has been adopted, and sometimes the child, from what I understand, because I heard it from the public, it was very concerning. So I'm glad that was mentioned tonight, because I do think that was a huge problem this year that really needs to be addressed, whether it was just, again, probably accidentally or just not thought through well enough. But you learn from your mistakes, and I think those things really have to be thought through, because I think it opened up the district to a huge liability. As far as trying to define what a medical injury is, it may help that if a trainer or a coach or a physician's assistant or whoever's on is actually attending to something on the child, I mean, that may be an easy way for you to come up with some sort of definition on an injury. Hearing about the press box and stuff, again, I think it opened up the district to a liability when someone mentioned that a step is wobbly. I personally, and probably for John and Olivia or whatever, I would fix that step immediately, instead of replacing the whole press box and trying to get that done immediately. I would tend to general maintenance on those issues. And again, kind of something that Mary Ann had brought up earlier on with the baseball fields, and I'm not sure when the high school fields were done, but if you're paying a decent amount of money, which we all know seems to happen, and when I met with Olivia and we went through some of the prices on the girls softball field in the middle school, which I had a concern with, it seems like you're paying a decent amount of money to people that should be directing you in the right way. To not have nets up, protecting from another field or another bleacher is kind of just, that's common sense. So how that's not picked up on, I mean, personally, when we do things and I look at a field, just when I drive to a field, and I'm very involved with the sports, I don't park my car in certain spots because I don't want the windshield broken or damaged. So how someone who's leading a project, and it's usually an outside source, isn't coming up with that is definitely something to think about, because they're paid to figure out everything from A through Z. And I'll leave with this, I think. I actually sent pictures to LAC, which I was part of, and I was at Berner Middle School in Massapequa the other day, and one thing that really, I guess, bothers me, because I've learned with my son how important sports are to a lot of kids, and how they take to the sports and what fields they use. Again, I was super impressed with the field at Berner Middle School, which was a beautiful turf field. I've read the studies on turf versus grass and the minimal amount of injuries, and it's something that should really be discussed. But just the shape of the field, the way it was taken care of, the presentation. My son helped put together this travel team that encompasses at least 7 kids from North Shore schools. And a couple things, comments from that night is, one, when the lights went on and they had a double header and it was 8:15 at night, all of the kids, you heard them go, wow, and because they've never played on a field with lights before. They've never played on a field that looked like that. And I was sitting next to a Seacliff mom who said, this is kind of ridiculous, because I just paid $19,000 in taxes, and my field looks like garbage compared to this. So I'm probably the only resident that came tonight and stayed here, and that's why I wanted to discuss a lot of things, but it just, I want to make sure you hear what I hear when I'm in the stands, or what I see, and that's why I send the pictures, because sports is huge for kids. An average baseball player makes $4.85 million a year, and we always talk about, and I see even in the bond about the offices and the security booths and everything like that, but there's very, very minimal conversation about the sports programs. And I think that needs to be adjusted and discussed a little bit more, and again, just thought through a little bit more, because even if they're not a baseball player or something, their future may be working for the New York Mets, or working for a farm team like the Blue Claws down in South Jersey or something like that, or, football or whatever it is. I just think there's a huge importance there. I think, school is a business. It really is, and you want to keep up with your competition, and I'm going to tell you, the competition's kicking our rear ends out there with the look of their facilities. And on that note, I'll leave. Even though I want the better facilities, and people want the better facilities, again, I think it needs to be thought through, the dollars and cents and what we're spending the money on. And any proposals that do come forward from the board, I hope you do get those two people from construction steering from the community and stuff like that, because proposals should not come in just as like a dollar figure and list out 10 things in a paragraph. The proposal and the price should be down to the doorknob, and what the exact cost is, and what the material is, and everything like that. So this way it leaves no room for any funny business, and it just needs to be very well thought out, so.
Can I ask you a follow-up question on the lights?
Sure.
I play tennis at the National Tennis Center, and we play outdoors at night, and it's a real adjustment playing under the lights. Did the kids find it difficult to transition in a baseball setting, just in terms of, you look up, it's like playing with sun sometimes?
Not that any of them mentioned, no.
No, I'm just thinking it's, if
I mean,
you
there
don't
wasn't
have
any-
it here,
there wasn't
it
any
may be at a
areas.
disadvantage when they go and play somewhere else.
Well, what happens is it's really just that they don't have the experience. And-
Right,
And
it's
for
a
me,
different experience.
kids should have the experience of as much as possible, because they're the kids, and sometimes, we're the adults in the room and we're trying to figure out what's best for them, but we don't ask them, which is kind of sad sometimes. So it's about the experience, and something like that may take a kid and say, you know what, I want to run with baseball, I want to run with sports, I want to be an athletic director, I want to do something. And that's how you shape kids and what they want to do for their future. Not everyone's going to be a lawyer, no disrespect, or a doctor, or, but the kids are going to have to do something, and they have to have those experiences as part of growing up. And in the society we are, a lot of people get those experiences, and unfortunately some kids don't. Unfortunately, our kids don't, and I see it. It's opened my eyes a lot being involved with the sports programs, and that's why I speak to it in depth. But, I only bring you advice and what I see out there, and if it helps you mold your decisions, it does. It does what it does, so. I appreciate the time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're just going to close public comment. There's no one else here. Action number 5 is the establishment of the tax levy. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
And I have a second. All in favor? I'm trying to find the next page. We're up to action number 7. Approval of the amendment to an employment agreement between, we moved up 6, we did it before. The whole thing.
Oh, just on number 6, just to go back, I know we discussed it, but I forgot, because we moved it to
Okay.
ask a question. We were supposed to get an analysis of the, trustee Galati asked, of the clubs that we approved and the clubs that actually ran. You're working on it, okay,
Yeah, we're working on it.
okay. Thank you.
Likewise, there was some discussion about sort of wanting to see what the whole roster of coaches were, not just the ones we're appointing now and
Yeah.
all that.
Yep, we're
Okay.
working on that too.
Action 7. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Do I have a second? I have a second. All in favor? Action number 8 is our memorandum of agreement with the Teachers Assistance Unit. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Action 9, adoption of policies. These are the policies we discussed in June. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Second, great. All in favor? Action 10 is the approval of the standard workday. Motion?
Motion.
Second? Just all in favor? I'm sort of guessing when I think you're going to have discussions. Action 11 is approval of the cell phone list. Do I have a motion? Second? All in favor? Action 12 is the approval of budget transfers. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
Questions?
So did we have a transfer that was, did we have an assessment on the TRS? Is that why we did a transfer? Or was,
Oh, no, these are for these people's salaries. Because what we did is, at the beginning of the school year, it's very difficult to know what to take money from. So what we have done is we took money from the TRS code, the line, and then come to the end of the school year, when we change it up there and say, oh, we will have to put too much money from TRS, so we have to put some money back.
oh, okay. I didn't understand where that came from, because I didn't think we had an assessment this year.
No, 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 no.
Okay. No, I didn't think we had an assessment, so that's why I was curious as to where it came from.
Other questions on the budget transfers?
On the security, was that part of the contract we approved, or was that in addition to the contracts we approved on Altaris? Or is that was for BOCES?
Oh, this is Antares, BOCES.
Okay.
Yes, we are paying them through BOCES code. It's a BOCES vendor. Antares is a BOCES.
But I thought we separately contracted for him. Did we not?
We do it for BOCES.
We do it for both BOCES.
And we get a BOCES aid on it.
Okay.
Further questions? All in favor of the budget transfers? Action 13 is the approval resolution to pursue litigation against Glen Cove. Do I have a motion? Do you have all of it? All in favor,
I have a question.
please?
I hope it's appropriate for public meeting. Do we have any, okay, I'll state it generally. Do we have any issues with schools reimbursing us for special education for our in-district private schools such as Greenvale?
No.
Thank you.
We have a problem getting timely contracts from anybody about anything related to it from other schools,
I'm concerned about
but apparently not the money.
hollow dollars. And, but in Glen Cove also, if they're residents in Glen Cove who are going to Greenvale, they do pay us in a time limit. Thanks.
Interesting. All right, we already voted.
Yes, it is.
So action 14 is the approval of agreement with the Seacliff Yacht Club for
Motion.
the pool.
Second.
Motion, great. All in favor? 15, approval of the agreement with the Long Island Jewish Medical Center, the Department of Orthopedic Surgery. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Second. Questions? All in favor? 16 is our agreement with Greg Alquist.
Alquist, yeah.
Is there a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Second.
Questions? All in favor? We'll take action 17 through 19 together, our donations from the Glen Head PTO, from Bob Forstrom, and from the Women's Club. Do I have a motion? Second?
Second.
Questions? All in favor? We'll take action items 20 through 33 together. These are our annual contracts. Do I have a motion?
Second.
And I have a second. Do I have any questions or discussions? I had asked previously, so I'll ask again on 30. It looked like we were changing our contract for instrument repair. So do you want to just?
Sure, so this, this was put out to bid, and this Paul Effman is the lowest responsible bidder, based on the and we were looking for a change.
Great. Other questions?
I have a
through
question
33?
on 27. the agreement for the employee assistance program provider.
Uh-huh.
Is there any way by which we gather information from our employees who utilize the employee assistant program and their satisfaction with that particular provider?
I don't believe that we do, but we can look into that for sure.
Don't look into. Okay. Anything else through 33? All in favor? Thank you. We'll take 34 through 39 together. These are the award of bids and purchase contracts. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
Questions or comments through 39? I got nothing. Nothing? All in favor? Action items 40 through 44, buildings and grounds contracts. Do I have a motion? And a second. Questions?
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
So, on the agreement with CS Arch on the ongoing projects, the cost of their services is 10% of the contract, and I believe we pay another 3% to Savin to manage it. Then there's another potentially $5,000 in out-of-pocket cost. The landscaping project for the front entrance, we already have a plan. You're talking about a softball field and the front entrance where you're really just talking about the electrical work and maybe some sprinkler work. How do we know that that's a competitive price? It seemed like a lot of money to me for what they were doing. And how did you bid something out without having plans? I mean, the softball field, you had a plan, right? Can't bid it out without a scope of work and a plan. So now we're paying for it again? How did we know that we needed $400,000 for it? For almost, it was estimated by Stu. All right, so we don't even have a bid in. Oh, because they have to design it. So how do we know that price is competitive? It seemed like a lot of money to me for what they were drawing.
10% of construction cost, right, and not the estimated cost. 10% of, so whatever the bid comes up to is what we get, 10%.
And then we pay another 3% to Savin to manage it. So every project we do costs us 13% right off the top.
It is,
I don't.
Seems like a lot of money.
yeah, it is a lot of money, but running after contractors and doing district projects at the same time during the summer is a lot of work for Team Popular Vote. So we do need people to assist him at that point because any mistake that we make will cost us dear. And we do go to the public meetings.
Trade over grade.
Right. Well, it's just that on the design portion, when we did the RFP, I don't remember talking about 10% of the instructional cost, or, of the cost for them for the projects. We did a number, right? We did a number for them to do the pre-bid.
I'd have to go back and take a look for you. I'm not sure.
I know, I'm just saying that we did an RFP, and we picked the architects really for the phase of the bond now. Those were the numbers we looked at. I don't recall getting a number, and then we got a number for bond work. This is another number that I don't know, did we ever bid out the number to actually, how do we know 10% is the right number?
What happens is, when it comes to architectural services, when you already have somebody in this, if we have to go and do an RFP and get another architect to come in to do the design for us, it creates a lot of problems down the road. So it's go back and negotiate?
But I just don't remember that kind of number with BBS. I think there was only one project that we had BBS actually bid out separately, which was the mechanicals for the gym.
They always give us estimated cost for other projects that
I don't see-
When we were using BBS, at least in the time that I've been here, we didn't use different architects to do design work for us. It was always BBS. They were our architect of record. And so the same is true for CS Arch. So to Olivia's point, if the board feels that the fee is too high, we'll go back and we'll negotiate with them. Obviously, Olivia and John evaluated it and have recommended it to move forward.
Right, and I'm not saying that we should use someone else. I just want to know, how do we know it's competitive? That's what I,
It's not competitively bid. These things are not competitively bid.
I think you're saying, not even competitive so much as like, is that standard? Right? Are you saying like, is this
I
reasonable
just
for
don't,
this?
I don't recall ever seeing something like this before.
Right,
You-
and she's saying they weren't surprised that it was higher because the project was smaller, but I don't have anything to compare it to.
Right, and I don't remember seeing like this, like the 10% described when we picked them as the architect of record. That's my point. We did an RFP, we picked an architect, part of it was based upon the fee they were going to charge for this pre-bond service. But we never discussed, that RFP, to the best of my recollection, didn't discuss this instance, didn't address this instance.
Right, right.
So I'm wondering if we missed something in our RFP when we did our RFP, should we have addressed this topic as to what they would have charged us? Because then I would know whether this was competitive or not. Because when I was looking at 3 bids and someone said they were going to charge me $60,000 for the pre-bond, but they were only going to charge me 5% on actual work that they had to design, maybe I would have picked the guy with $60,000 and the 5%, right? I mean, people want to lure you in. You know, the engineer said our fee is nothing for the pre-bond, but this is what we're going to charge for your management. Well, they're charging you nothing up front because they want their 3%. And all of that is fair if you are comparing apples to apples. What I'm saying to you is, when we picked CS Arch based upon that RFP, we didn't look at, I mean, maybe we did, I don't recall looking at it, that it would be 10 points on every drawing that they did for us. And I have no way of knowing if that's a competitive number.
I think we can go back and negotiate that price, but the only danger is when you have one architect on your job and we go into an RFP for another architect. What happens when there's a problem? All of them will be going.
I understand that, that's not my point. My point is, when we bid the RFP,
We did not include other services.
we did not include other services. And we should have included that in the RFP, so when I get a price on what I consider 2 very small projects, one of which already has a drawing from another architect of I understand that, but it's not like we're reinventing the wheel, right? Right? So when I see this and it's 10% of the price, I'm a little surprised, because we had an RFP, we didn't ask that question, so now not only am I surprised, but I have no way of knowing, since when we did the RFP, we didn't ask that question, if this is a competitive price. It may very well be. I just have no way of knowing that.
Do you,
I'm going to abstain from this vote. You guys can vote on it, but I'm abstaining, because I feel like we should have addressed this.
4. I had asked a question on number 40, by the way. I wasn't clear on what VHB engineers did, but apparently they did the secret and historical preservation.
And New York Environmental, we've there's only like one place to
Those we
do
know,
that,
right,
the
yeah, that
environmental.
seemed, right, more
There's
clear.
really not a lot of choices out there.
Okay, any other questions on this? All right, all in favor?
I'm okay with 40 and 41. I am
Okay,
not
so,
okay, I am not
um,
okay with the CSR ones. I just want that on the record. I'm not okay with that.
Can we,
Well,
There's two-
I don't have to, she could abstain on all of
There's
them,
two
but.
Well, I
Okay,
don't have any objection to the others. I have an objection.
but Olivia, you said you thought you could renegotiate that. Yeah, so then we should remove it and not, but if you're willing to do that, and then we can come back to that.
Work on the projects, that's the only thing, because we only have the summer to spend these projects. Otherwise, we have to do fair prevention.
someone can make a motion to table it. The
I'm making a
dangerous-
motion to vote on 40, 41, 42, and 43 separately.
Okay, second.
And
All in favor?
I second the motion.
All right, all in favor? Okay, we're voting separately. So we're voting on, what Mary Ann just said? 40, 41, 43, and 44.
No, I
Yeah?
asked her to separate them all out. I thought you were gonna
You
do
want them
sep-
all separately? Oh, I thought you
Well, I
wanted to put
don't,
them all.
I said that was the motion, was to separate all the
misheard you.
numbers out.
I misheard you.
But you can do it, that you can vote on 40 and 41
No,
together.
it's good. I misheard
Betty
you.
will
The
tell
motion
you.
is passed.
Betty will tell you.
Well, you had a motion already and a second to do 40 to 44, right?
Yeah.
So now we need to amend that motion, I think.
So
it-
Marion's gonna move to
Amend that motion
to vote
to,
separately.
to take out 42 and 43, which are the, is that, wait a second, which ones are the CS Arches one? Is 42?
It's 42.
CS Arch, correct?
Correct.
So we just want to separate out 42.
That's just 42.
We want to take 42 out by itself?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So you can vote on 40 and 41, then you can vote on 42, and then you can vote on the rest of the other three. So you're gonna make a motion to amend the other motion, I guess.
To pull out 42. To pull out 42.
I understand, but we've still got to vote on the motion.
43 and 44.
We still have to vote on the motion to amend the motion. All right, so Marion is so moving to amend the motion. And
I second
you
it.
took the second, and now we're all going to vote to amend the motion. And now I am going to say, do I have a motion to approve 40 and 41?
Motion.
No, 40,
No.
40,
What did
41.
I say?
43,
You want those all together? I'm like, okay. 40, 41,
43 and
43, and 44. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Do I have a second? All in favor? Action 42, do I have a motion?
Motion?
Do I have a second? All in favor? What's wrong? Tim's making a face.
I thought we were tabling that. We're not tabling that. We're
Nobody
just
made a
separating
motion to
it.
table.
No, we didn't make a motion to table, because Olivia said they need to.
And I said someone could make a motion to table, and we would discuss this delay. Do you want
No,
to
I'm
make a
willing to
motion?
vote.
Okay. All in favor? We're voting on 42.
I'm against. I'm voting no.
Okay. Action 45 is the secret. Do I have a motion? Do I have a second? All in favor? Actions items 46 through 55, special ed contracts. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Do I have a second? I need a
Second.
second. Any questions? We're doing 46 through 55, the special ed contracts.
Special ed contract.
Any questions? All in favor? Action 57 is the approval of agreements between North Shore and Roslyn. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
I have a
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? 58, approval of agreement between North Shore and Tigerman. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
Questions?
We didn't approve 56, the IEPs.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Let's finish voting on 58 and I'll go back. Questions on 58? All in favor? Action 56, sorry, I written something above it and I missed it. It's the approval of the special education services, the IEPs. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? 59 is the approval of the agreements between North Shore and CS Arch on the architecture and interior design services. Do I have a motion? A second?
Second.
May I have your questions and conversation, please? Anyone?
I have questions. Couple of things. It says for on an as-needed basis that we need that we may, which suggests to me we may need assistance, but don't necessarily need assistance. And the cost is $16,000, and that tells me whether we need the help or we don't need the help. It's $16,000
For furniture.
to help to help
pick
us,
up-
right?
pick out
to-
furniture.
and that's
That's not true. It's not just about picking out furniture. So it's designing the classroom spaces. So the furniture is a piece of that, but there are other components of the classrooms. They were here yesterday. Today's Thursday. They were here yesterday with the administrative team, presenting concept designs and how spaces can be used. And the next piece will be meeting with each of the teams to talk about, and the teachers to talk about different preferences that they have, different configurations that can be used, different ways that the spaces obviously won't be reconfigured, but they'll be redesigned in their usage. So if so, the $16,000, sort of if you think about it, it's about a little over $3,000 per school and consultation for all the design, all the visits, and the ordering and the install.
And an evaluation afterwards,
Correct.
which I was curious about.
Right.
How
And we'll send
they were
you,
gonna do that.
we'll be happy to send I'll be happy to forward the board the presentation slides that they gave to the team yesterday.
I would kind of like to see that.
Sure.
I think the problem is that may be, again, that may be reasonable, but it may not be reasonable, and I think that's where the board is struggling. I don't want to put words in your mouth, Tim.
no, you're not. I'm just wondering if it's necessary to have architects to do that, to design a learning space in a classroom. I mean, it seems to me something that district teachers and administrators are able to do.
We're not architects, and we're not
I
designers
understand.
of spaces, right? So for example, there are, so yes, could we do it? Would we know we were doing it right? We don't know, right? So it is good to have someone who is expert in this kind of work to come in and assist us with the implementation of that.
Because you're trying to design an experiment, basically.
An experiment and a learning experience for children, because all of our classrooms now are very traditional desks and rows kinds of spaces. So we want to tie that to how space is used to impact learning.
Right, but they're not educators, they're architects, is my point.
That's true.
So, right, but they're doing it obviously in consultation with the educators, and we hired them for their, generally for their expertise in schools.
Okay.
But, yeah, it's money. Other questions or discussions? Okay. Yeah?
So 59B,
Yeah.
softball field is now 485? Plus 85 for the lighting and the pole? So 570, which they're getting at 10%? Softball field was like under 3 when I first got started talking about it.
No, the 557,000 is the softball field and the landscaping together. The softball field was 488, and the front entrance was 85,000.
It says here in their
Together,
project
or-
outline, the budget for this project is 485 for the field and accessories and 85,000 for lighting and cameras. Now, that's not lit field, because that power is being taken there and capped. It's for the security lighting and and
Right.
camera. So that's a separate 85 from the front entrance.
I didn't read it that way. I thought it was 488 for the whole thing on the other, when I saw CS Arches work.
Clarify this principle.
First of all, I'll talk to them and find out whether that percentage is construction cost or the estimated value. It's two different things. So if that comes out to be $200,000, yeah, the difference is different. So with the sum, we'll have to go back to that. Okay.
The numbers that they quote in their proposal are directly from the 501 code of the budget, the 1920 budget. There's the number for the field, and there's an extra number for the cameras.
For the lighting cameras is
security
separate.
lighting, and there's a number for the front entrance. They just transpose those from our budget into their proposal, saying this is your budget for this scope of work, and that's it. So that's where those numbers.
And they came from Stu?
They were Stu's estimates that we put in the 1920 budget. That's
Okay.
about.
Okay.
The extra 85 was added because Stu's initial estimate was only for the field, and then when we talked about adding lighting for security, not for field lighting and cameras, Stu felt we needed an extra cushion there to handle that.
As long as they're being paid off of the actual costs,
Yes,
these estimates.
I'll definitely, because I went back to them, I'm sorry, I went back to them before the and said, this is going to almost construction cost, and we're going to have to, and I think it's to do that after them.
Okay. Thank you.
Anything else on 59? Okay. All in favor?
I'm voting no.
I am as well on this one.
Action 60, acceptance of the donation from the Glen Head Elementary School faculty for the portrait. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Second? All in favor?
That's nice.
Comments from the public? Old business.
Just real quick, I had circulated the LAC revisions with
Yeah.
language which was helpfully provided by Jack. Everyone had a chance to see them, so hopefully we reviewed them and we'll put it up for a vote on August 29th.
Does it just take, it just takes a single vote? It's like LAC bylaw revisions, right? Okay. Is that fine?
That's fine.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone.
Other old or new? I'll open it up to new business. No one dares have any new business.
I do have one question before I So Olivia's and her staff put out the RFP for the internal auditor. Those responses are due tomorrow.
Great.
Okay. And so I have a question for the board on how you want to handle those interviews. Do you want that done by the full board, a subcommittee of the board, or do you want the administration to bring you a recommendation?
The internal auditors should report directly to the board, and hence I feel that unfortunately the full board needs to interview them. Anyone?
How many
Feel
responses
differently?
did you get? Do you want to?
I don't know offhand.
All right, because
I'm
I
not
was
saying
going
we
to
have to
say,
interview
we don't have to
all of them.
interview all of them. That's
No.
what I was going to say. Could
We
you?
would take recommendations on.
Right,
Yes,
Let's
You
hope
want
we
us
get
to
some.
evaluate the proposals?
yes,
yes.
Okay. So we'll
yeah.
bring you 2 to 3?
I mean, if you had, yeah, it depends on how many people apply. If you only get 2 people, you can only send us 2 people, right? I
All
mean,
right.
Doesn't
That
sound
seems-
like it's a
that seems
booming
fair.
business.
Do
Right.
you,
I'm gonna go into this business.
do you have, do you have,
I'm going
does,
to become a school attorney.
do you have any interest in tying that to your August 8th meeting?
Well,
Are you going to need internal auditors for the fall? So if we're going to be here on August 8th, we might as well get it all done.
yes, how early can we start, people?
Because you'll have to appoint them at your August 29th.
I mean, ideally, yeah. How early can we meet on the 8th, people?
6:30 instead of 7?
I'll try and make 6:30. It all depends on what's going on August 8th.
I mean, presumably, we could also make the other meeting at 7:30 if we had to.
You said 7 o'clock on the last meeting?
We said 7,
Right,
so,
so you should have, if you normally start your public meetings at 7:45, you should have time to do both if you start at 7.
Okay. Better.
Right.
6:30 is a killer.
you think we can start at 7?
I think you can start at 7, and then
Okay.
if you call your public meeting for 7:45 like you normally do, you'll be fine.
Okay,
Great.
all right, so 7, interview.
I will send a note out.
All right.
Got nothing else.
All right. Motion to adjourn? Motion. Second, all in favor? We are done. Thank you, everyone, for